There we go.
And we're live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Made by Jim Bob show. I am your host and moderator for the night. Those of you that are not aware, I am Zen Shapiro, co-host of The Crucible. I know I'm not around very much these days, but take what you can get. Jim Bob graciously asked me to step in and guest moderate tonight, so I'm here for the evening. The debate we're going to be having is on the existence of God. Made by Jim Bob and WifiGospel are going to be taking the affirmative. Michael Regilio, is that how you say it?
Yep. Well,
Regilio,
Hard
also known Regilio, also known as DogmaDebate, and Jff4Truth are going to be taking the negative. Before we get into it, I want to give everybody a chance to introduce themselves, tell us what you're all about, where we can find you. Jim Bob obviously needs no introduction because this is his channel, but Jim Bob, we'll start with you.
Yeah, Made by Jim Bob. Welcome to the channel. Thanks you guys for coming on and debating. I'll probably do a little bit more debating on my channel, and you can find me on Twitter at Jim Bob and Made by Jim Bob at Instagram.
All right, and WifiGospel, go ahead. You're muted right now, just so you know.
Yeah, what's up, guys? Thank you, Jim Bob, for having me. Thanks, Zen, for moderating. Michael and Jeff, appreciate you being here. I just do YouTube mostly. You can find me at WifiGospel. I debate a lot. Sometimes I do live streams. I'm going to be doing a lot of reaction videos, stuff like that. I've been debating for about 7 years, so it's like my 6th or 7th debate. Excited to be here.
All right, and Michael, go ahead.
My name is Michael Regilio, stand-up comedian, musician, and host of the Dogma Debate podcast, found wherever you get fine podcasts. And yeah, you can find me at Michael Regilio just about anywhere.
All right, and Jff4Truth, go ahead. You're muted right now, Jeff.
Jff4Truth, or Jeff Mitchell. I wrote a book, Pride and Joy, called Jesus Demigod. I was a Christian for 40 plus years and realized who created Christianity and why. And I documented that in my book, Jesus Demigod. All my links, I've got a website, I've got books, I've got a Discord. All my links are on my link tree. And you can just Google Linktree Jff4Truth and find it. The number 4 in the middle.
All right. Well, thank you guys for being here. Thank you, everybody in the audience, for tuning in. Should be a fun debate. We are going to have it slightly formalized structure, but there is going to be some open dialogue. So the format is going to be each participant is going to get 5 minutes, so 5 minutes per person of opening statements. And then there's going to be 20 minutes each side for cross-examination, where the cross-examining team will be asking the questions. The other team will just be answering the questions. And then we're going to have 40 minutes of open dialogue, totally open floor. And each side's going to get closing statements at the end. And then send in your super chats if you have Q&A from the audience. And we are going to be taking callers. Jim Bob will drop the link to the StreamYard at the end. So if you want to call in, ask a question directly to either side, you can do that when the debate is over. That being said, Jim Bob and WifiGospel, because you are in the affirmative, are you guys okay with going first?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll do 5 minutes each person on each team. So whichever one of you wants to start, go ahead. You have 5 minutes on the clock.
Did you want to start, Jim Bob?
No, you go.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So Proverbs 1 verses 7 says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. And this truth is echoed throughout the entire Bible. The Bible is clear that no knowledge can be had apart from God. All knowledge assumes the truth of the Christian worldview. Whenever you claim to know something, the foundation for that knowledge is the fear of the Lord. And real quick, the debate isn't merely about winning. Souls are really at stake tonight. So if during this debate, you're probably going to receive more light and truth than you ever have before. And God will hold you accountable for what you do with that. If you don't repent of your sins and place your faith in Jesus Christ, there is no hope for you. My sister was actually just in a really bad car accident. She's got some major injuries, but she'll be fine. It was just a sober reminder that any moment can be your last. She didn't wake up that day thinking that she was going to end up laying in a pool of her own blood on the side of the highway. So just keep that in mind. The Bible says that we all innately know that God exists, but we suppress that truth because of our unrighteousness. This is evident in the fact that every time we open our mouths and make statements about reality, we assume that the God that we deny. And the argument starts like this. If humans know things, then the Christian worldview is true. Humans know things, therefore the Christian worldview is true. For tonight's discussion, we can use the simple philosophical definition of knowledge, which is a justified true belief. The key problem here is, how do we know if a belief is true or justified? Imagine if I stop at my usual gas station after work, I pay with my card, insert the pump, pull the trigger, let it run for 10 minutes, hang it up and drive home. Later, when my wife asks me, hey, is the gas tank full? I'll answer, yeah, I just filled it. She goes out to the car and it doesn't start. There's no gas in the tank. It turns out that the gas tank had a hole in it and I didn't notice it, and it leaked all over the street on the way home. In this case, I merely had a false belief that my gas tank was full, not knowledge, because it wasn't actually true that my tank was full. Now, what if my gas tank didn't have a hole in it, but I was 70 years old and had dementia? I stop at the gas station, I put the pump in my gas tank, and I pull the trigger. The gas dispenses and I fill my tank. My wife asks me, hey, is the gas tank full? And I answer, yeah, of course, I just filled it. She goes out, she starts the car, the tank's full. The issue is I have dementia, and it wasn't me that filled my tank. It was one of my children who loves to help me out, and I just remembered wrong because I have dementia. It's true that my tank is full, but my justification was no justification at all. I had a true belief, but not knowledge. This illustrates why knowledge must be infallibly true and undoubtedly justified. The only alternative to this is something called fallibilism, which claims that knowledge doesn't require a justification value of 100%. The problem with this is that any level under 100% is completely arbitrary. There's no principled reason why it should be 99% or 51%. So it follows that if it's arbitrary, I can use whatever level I want, including less than 1%. If fallibilism is true, my belief in God could be less than 1% probable, and it must be considered knowledge. It can be less than 1% justified. It can be less than 1% true, and it must be considered knowledge. This is why fallibilism sucks. Lastly, if the only way to know something is to know it infallibly, then only God can know things, right? Well, not really. Is it possible that God could reveal things to us such that we can know them infallibly? The eternal, holy creator and sustainer of all things? That God can most definitely reveal things to us such that we can know them. In fact, this is the only way we can know things. Without general and special revelation from God, we cannot know anything, and that's what we will demonstrate during this debate. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your opening statement. WifiGospel, Jim Bob, whenever you're ready, you have 5 minutes on the clock.
Okay, I'm ready. When we come to a debate, we're assuming something pretty massive right out the gates. We're assuming that truth exists. And so when we talk about claims, whether or not God exists, it's not the same type of claim as whether or not, let's say, an apple exists or a set of trees exists in the wilderness. We're talking about a different kind of claim here. And so what kind of claim are we talking about? We're making a claim about something that necessitates an absolute source for all. And so when we talk about truth, given our opponents, one of them is named Jff4Truth, he actually holds there is such a thing of truth. So when we argue tonight, we're going to be arguing from the position of categorizing properly what truth is, such that it's absolute, it's discoverable, and it's something that we can actually apprehend through debate or through our own sense data and philosophy. So what's required for that right off the bat? The question is, the list of things I'm about to say, can you justify these things from a non-God belief? Well, myself and my partner here are going to argue that you can't justify the following things without assuming God. And I'll make an argument for how God is necessary for these things. And you'll notice tonight that our opponents, coming from whatever tradition they're coming from, empiricism, naturalism, physicalism, general atheism, will not be able to justify these set of things. But they will assume them in their debate. They will just assume them right off the bat. So let's just take a look. A couple of things. One thing you have to assume is a mind. What is a mind under the atheist view? The Christian view has an account. The regularity of nature. This is an assumption for induction. What justifies that? Knowledge and truth. These are conceptual and absolute and universal concepts. Information, another immaterial thing that exists that's not identical to matter. Universals and particulars. These are just a few that I would call, let's say, items in a category you would call transcendental. What I mean by that is it's not found as matter. You don't arrive at these things through correspondence. You assume these things to then do correspondence, empiricism, science, and so forth. So I'm going to present a pretty straightforward argument tonight, demonstrating the necessity of God. I'm going to define God as a necessary absolute mind, a universal mind, if you will, which justifies not only the items that I've just put up on the screen, but specifically the items I'm going to encase in this argument. Premise 1, the laws of logic are universal and conceptual. Premise 2, concepts are mind dependent. Premise 3, universal concepts require a universal mind because humans didn't invent the laws of logic. So because humans don't create universal concepts, but rather we discover them, and concepts are mind dependent, there is a mind that's necessary such that we can discover universal concepts. Universal concepts exist, premise 4. C, conclusion, a universal mind exists. Now, the only way to argue against this argument is to assume universality of truth and knowledge, as well as the items I listed before, and you're going to have to justify their existence. No other view can do this, by the way, aside from Christianity. That's the view. Now, the step to Christianity is a different argument than the step of establishing a necessary universal mind to ground these things that we're bringing up. So
1 minute, Bob.
Thank you. So what we're dealing with are concepts that are universal. I just want to really iterate this, that when we come to a debate, our opponents, both of them, assume there is some type of ontology for truth. There is some type of ontology for the laws of logic. They assume that knowledge does, in fact, exist. From our view, we can justify that, not only make the assertion, but make an argument that it's a necessary mind, a specific kind of being, a specific type of God that justifies these things. Whereas our opponents will be using these things, borrowing from our view, without justifying all of the items they're using.
All right, thank you for that opening statement, Jim Bob. And we're going to go over to the right side. Michael or Jeff, whichever one of you wants to start. You have 5 minutes on the clock for your opener.
What do you say, Jeff? You want me to go?
I think he said go ahead. You're muted, Jeff, but he said go ahead.
Okay, that sounds good. I was trying to create an argument for the deist position. I was sure that Alex would try and smuggle the Christian God in, but he didn't smuggle him in. He drove him up in a limo and walked him down to the red carpet into our debate. So we have the Christian God has arrived. That being said, here is my prepared statement. We are going to undoubtedly start with the notion that the universe had a beginning. We always do, for which there is evidence. It's not a fact that what we call the beginning of the universe is in fact the beginning of the universe. That is to say, at the singularity, that period when science tells us our universe was in an incomprehensible state, infinitely dense, infinitely hot, space and time had yet to come into existence. We don't know. That might not have been the beginning. That might have been the end of another universe, or just one of many births going back infinitely, turtles all the way down, if you will. But we know that that was the beginning of the state of our universe as it is now. So go ahead, we'll call it a beginning. And how do we know about this? Well, by using empirical evidence, of course. And when we reach this beginning, the atheist reaches a question mark, an uncomfortable question mark to be sure. But at this point, we can say nothing else. We can glean nothing else. So we say question mark. We don't know. Our friends, on the other hand, are going to insert something made up, the concept of a God, undoubtedly made up by man. That's just a fact. Our opponents are going to attempt an end run around evidence. They are going to, as they already have, they are going to offer philosophical arguments for the existence of God because they have no actual evidence. But with the exception of God, what the heck else that actually exists do we accept philosophical arguments to prove? I mean, what thing that is real do we accept is real just based on philosophical arguments? I myself like to think of the Higgs boson. The Higgs boson, it worked on paper. All the math worked out perfectly. Every equation pointed to the idea that there was a field and a particle that helped to explain where mass comes from. But even with perfect mathematical proof, that wasn't good enough. No, not good enough for science, not good enough for real proof. The scientists of the world and the world's governments all had to come together and build the Large Hadron Collider to the tune of billions and billions of dollars with the labor and efforts of thousands of the brightest minds on Earth. And you know what? They did it. They proved it. We can now say definitively that there is a Higgs boson. And for all that effort, and all that effort was just to prove a tiny subatomic particle. So why is it that my opponents think that to prove the existence of the most important thing imaginable, a creator God, they get to skip all the hard work and all the actual evidence and just present an airy philosophical argument? I find it very interesting that whatever evidence they're going to provide for the existence of God was not in the minds of the people who came up with the idea of a God. That concept of a God comes from lightning and earthquakes and volcanoes and the wind and whatever it was that made ancient people think that there was causality behind nature. And that God has already been disproven. We know what makes the wind blow. So we're going to get newer, fancier arguments for a far less tangible, far less interactive God. The arguments for God have been retreating ever since it was conceived. No longer do people point to volcanoes and say, well, where the heck do you think that comes from if there's no God? Now we're going to get them pointing to the universe and the laws of logic, and they're going to say, where the heck do you think they come from if there's no God? But it's the same arguments. They just moved to a new question mark. So let's define our gods.
1 minute, Michael.
Okay. I always find it strange when a Christian wants to debate the general concept of God, the deist God, and not the God they actually believe in. I'm an atheist. I argue against all the gods all the time. And I find it odd that you don't want to argue the God that you actually believe in. So define your God. Is it an intelligent God? Does it do stuff? Okay. So now you have a burden of proof. Let's talk about that. Because if it's just the cause of the universe, then why not just call it the cause of the universe? My opponents are no doubt going to bring up the fine-tuning argument. That is to say, the universe is fine-tuned for us. This is, of course, the exact opposite of what we know to be the truth. It is us. We are fine-tuned for the universe. But let's say the universe is fine-tuned.
10 seconds.
That would be evidence for atheism. What other universe would you find yourself living in other than the one that we could live in? The unfine-tuned universe would be the evidence for God if we looked at the universe and said, holy cow, we shouldn't be here at all. Something supernatural must be going on.
That'll be time, Michael.
All righty.
All right. Thank you for that opener. Jeff, you have 5 minutes on the clock for your opening statement.
All right, so I can pick up right with this. I was having these thoughts today about the fine-tuning argument. So, and I agree with Michael, what he just said. The fact that life only exists on Earth is evidence that God did not do it. Because if God could create life if God is the one who created life, why did he have to fine-tune it to specifically meet only the needs that exist on Earth? Why can't he create life on Mars or Venus? In fact, believers believe that God created angels. Do they breathe oxygen? Are they a certain distance from their sun so that they can operate in a temperate climate? So you believe in imaginary characters that do not require oxygen to breathe. You have no evidence whatsoever that these beings exist, yet you believe in them. And so the fact that life only exists as we know it on Earth is evidence that life is a product of very rare conditions. So I know the first thing out of Alex's mouth was Proverbs 1:7, but the Bible is easily proven false. So whenever you are appealing to something that we can prove is false, then your ideology is flawed. The Bible is not reliable. The Bible justifies all sorts of evil, ancient, archaic ideologies and moralities. We can prove them wrong. It is full of contradictions and errors and false claims. Jesus said, whoever believes in him can heal the sick, yet not a single believer today can heal anybody. So it's amazing to me that in the 21st century, we have people that are believing these ridiculous, nonsensical, unjustified, unsupported things with no evidence. And now I don't mean that as an insult, because I myself was a believer for over 40 years. I say for 46 years, I believed in the Christian God. I was raised in a Christian home, and I was actively a Christian from the age of 16. I got baptized for the remission of my sins and devoted my life to Jesus and Christianity and the Bible. And until the age of 46, I still believed that the Bible was the holy word of God and that Christianity was the way to get to heaven. But the reason I'm so passionate about it now is because I realized that I believed lies that were unjustified, that were inconsistent, that were evil. And in fact, Alex even demonstrated in his opening how evil it is, saying that if you don't believe what he believes, that your soul is in danger and that you're going to be punished if you don't believe what he believes. This is an ancient, evil, manipulative tactic to scare people into believing in your imaginary friend. And what it does is it makes you feel better for believing in something that is completely irrational and unjustified, because it makes you feel less crazy. I know what it's like to believe. I believe, and I do not mean this as insult, because if I'm insulting anybody, I'm insulting myself, because I believed in the Christian God for over 40 years. But now I know, and I have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the Bible is false, that Christianity is a false man-made religion. And when you say that the only worldview that could exist is the Christian worldview, is an absolutely ridiculous claim that I've already disproven with Mark 16, 17, and 18, that says whoever believes in Jesus can heal the sick, or drink deadly poison, or handle venomous snakes and not be harmed. This is an absolutely verifiably false statement. So to believe in an ancient book that makes absolutely false statements is to admit that your ideology is completely flawed. And when we're talking about the existence of God, so as Michael was stating, things that are real actually provide evidence. You don't have to attribute things to this imaginary character. They actually provide evidence. And there is no evidence for God. And so the only
30
way
seconds, Jeff.
The only way that you could win this debate is if God himself provides some evidence for his existence. The fact that you have to defend God is evidence that your God is weaker than you and less capable than you to speak. God can't speak. God can't do anything. But yet you believe in a being, an invisible man in the sky, that can't even speak or demonstrate his existence in any way whatsoever. And the fact that you have to defend him is evidence that you believe you are more powerful than him. When you're
That'll be time, Jeff. That'll be time for
you are stronger than him.
All right. Thank you guys for those opening statements. Sorry, we had to cut you guys a little bit short there. We are going to get into the cross-examination period. Before we do it, want to remind you guys, send in your super chats. We're going to do Q&A at the end. And if you want to call in and ask questions to either side, we are going to be taking callers. Jim Bob will send the link out in the chat to the StreamYard. Given that the left side went first and you guys are the affirmative, I think it's fair for the right side to be the first ones to cross-examine. And in this period, the negative, Michael and Jeff will be asking all of the questions. Jim Bob and WifiGospel will be answering questions. The only questions you guys can ask are clarifying questions on what you were asked. But any sort of arguments you want to go on, or any line of questioning you want to go on, wait until it's your turn for the cross-examine. But we're going to do 20 minutes each side. So Michael and Jeff, you guys can kick it off.
Sure. I have one to start off, and I'd like to state first that I forgot to thank Alex specifically for inviting me to this debate. I really appreciate that, Alex. And secondly, I would like to point out that this debate thus far is proof that beards are in style. A fully bearded panel, including the host. So we're getting there. So I would ask to my friends on the other side, can you point to any creator or intelligence that is not an evolved being on the planet Earth?
An evolved being?
Yeah, the only things that I've ever known that have created anything or has any intelligence are evolved biological creatures living on the planet Earth.
So you're asking for, can we provide a material being?
No. Can you give an example? You are arguing the idea that there is an intelligence outside of the universe, and you have a sample group of 0. I have, for creators and intelligence, I have a sample size currently in the billions on the planet Earth, and probably closer to trillions in the history of the planet Earth, where I can show you that is where intelligence comes from through a process called evolution. And that is where through intelligence, you can reach a point where you become a creator, a creative intelligence. And what exactly are you even talking about if you are pointing to something outside of that closed system that we know about?
I would just clarify that you're smuggling in evolution as an assumption in your question, and so I'm going to remove that from the question, and I'll answer your question from our
Why
paradigm.
would I remove something that's been proven scientifically from the question?
It hasn't. But if you want to debate evolution later, I'll be happy to do that with you. Your question begging, you're saying the only minds, essentially intelligent, which assumes minds, the only minds that exist evolved from natural processes. That's what you're asking me.
Right.
You're telling me that, and you're saying prove a mind exists outside of my smuggled assumption of evolution producing a mind, right? Well, first of all, Michael, you haven't demonstrated that a mind is produced by evolution. You just assume it. Second of all, our position is God's existence, his ontology, is immaterial.
Right. So can you point to anything that is immaterial that doesn't exist?
Yes, truth.
Right. Okay. So what can truth create? What intelligence does truth have? So you take a concept and you compare it to what you believe to be an intelligence.
Well, first of all, do you concede that truth it does exist? You asked because you asked me, give me one example of something that exists that isn't material. I said truth. I can give you more: knowledge, information, meaning.
Something that has intelligence. I mean, I only know of a mind having intelligence.
Okay.
Intelligence outside of a mind sounds like a tough one to.
Well,
tough bridge to cross as well.
I could answer in the form of an argument, right? Truth exists. Are you going to deny truth exists?
That is a deeper philosophical debate.
Well,
for the sake of this argument, there. Yes. I'll say
you're debating, right? So, I mean, you have to assume truth exists if you're debating the truth of the matter of God's existence. So what I said in my opener is the answer to your question. Truth is universal and conceptual.
Okay.
Concepts require a mind.
Right. And it's our minds that.
Hold on. Wait, which minds create the truth? Are you saying human beings create the truth, fabricate it?
No, but we are the only ones to interpret the truth.
Okay,
outside of the human mind.
So we discover it then. So that's again, my argument is that we discover truth. If truth is universal and conceptual, so that means we're discovering it.
So your idea of a God, it has the same properties as truth. That is to say, it can't do anything. It just is.
Our God,
it can't be communicated.
No, that's not true. No, that's not true.
It's an airy concept.
No, we didn't say that.
It just is.
We didn't say that. Our concept of truth is different than yours. Yours is a description of reality, granting all of the things that are immaterial, so that you can, investigate the material world.
What immaterial things am I granting?
Truth, mind, knowledge, information, meaning, laws of logic.
No, these are concepts within my mind. And outside of them, it's like if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one to hear it.
So truth. So truth. You just said truth is a concept in your mind. Is truth universal now that it's only in your mind? No.
Okay, hold on. I understand you're trying to establish the premise here, Jim Bob, but you're asking a question that is not really a clarifier. So let's keep the asking on the other side.
So I think we need to simplify the question, because we're going to waste our entire time debating semantics. So, what is your evidence for God?
Evidence assumes your worldview. I just gave you things that exist. that don't exist with hardcore evidence, like actual evidence, right? So there's no evidence physically.
So no, there is evidence for truth.
No, there isn't. What is it made of then?
So it's not made of anything. That's an inappropriate question.
No evidence then.
Truth is not made of anything. Truth is not created.
Tell us the
Truth
evidence.
is simply, so are we speaking English right now?
Tell us the evidence. You said evidence, right? I'm not going to ask you questions. You're making claims now. You said truth exists and there's evidence. Show me. I want to know the evidence.
Listen, Jim Bob, I asked you for the evidence of God, and you're dancing.
I just told you, truth is the evidence of God. Truth is immaterial, requires a mind, universal mind.
That is a baseless assertion.
No, it's not. Tell me which premise do you deny? I gave you guys the argument. Premise 1, truth is universal and conceptual. Premise 2, concepts require a mind, right? The human beings discover truth.
Evidence is not limited to empirical evidence.
Personally, I'm willing to grant you that God is like truth. It has no power. It can do nothing. It's just a concept. It's just an airy thing that exists. I mean,
what?
If that's your God, is the same as truth.
So truth doesn't exist then. You just argued truth doesn't exist.
Does exist but if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one there to hear it, if truth exists and there's nobody to conceptualize it, then what is the point? The truth that
does the tree produce sound waves?
That things with mass attract each other? I mean, I don't want to use science with somebody who denies evolution, so I'm not sure exactly where to go with.
That's just a red herring. That's
not a red herring.
That's well poisoning and a red herring. I would destroy you in an evolution debate if you want to do one-on-one.
I highly
you guys define evidence, by the way.
The entire
give
field
us the definition of evidence,
science
please.
is against you, but
the entire field, that's an appeal to a majority. Science changes their opinions on things.
Okay, well let me try to bridge the gap here. So left side, I assume both of you. I know Jim Bob does. I assume WifiGospel also denies evolution. If you guys are cross-examining and doing an internal critique of their worldview, you would have to adopt their framework. So if they're saying we don't grant evolution, you have to build your questions based upon their worldview, which doesn't grant that. So you're going to have to build on that yourself.
This is actually my first formal debate, Zen. So I appreciate any time you want to jump in and help me out with that.
I would like to ask the clarifying question of what is evidence. Can you define evidence for us if you're asking for evidence?
Well, so an example of evidence would be, if you've developed your worldview, and I know that you have based on the Bible, then why is it that when the Bible says that whoever believes in Jesus can heal the sick, that you can't? So this is actually this
clarifying question. He asked you a clarifying question. You didn't answer it.
I'll go with the Higgs boson.
I provided an example.
What's the criteria? Ask it again, Alex. They need better language.
I just want to know the definition of evidence you're using when you ask me, do you have evidence for God?
Something that supports your view.
Okay. I gave one in the opening statement as well.
So did I. Yeah, logical evidence is a form of evidence. So you're asking for empirical evidence for things that we, under our view, isn't empirical, and I've demonstrated under your view, you actually do assume things that aren't empirically derived. You don't hold them, taste them, smell them, weigh them, touch them, or anything.
Right.
I'm assuming God created the universe.
What?
Correct?
Yes.
Right. So your God does stuff.
God, our God.
So something that actually does things and interacts with the physical world, evidence becomes very clear at that point. And it becomes very clear. And the Higgs boson, I think, is an excellent example of something that we had mathematical proofs for, still not good enough. They had to build the Large Hadron Collider. Now we can prove that both Higgs field and the Higgs boson actually exist. You're proposing something even more massive and powerful than the Higgs field, and yet you have no mathematical proof and no mathematical proof of it.
Okay, cool. So math, by the way, is descriptive and not causal. And I just want to point out that you appealing to math is just one more item to the list of immaterial things you assume exist without evidence.
And you keep saying about the Higgs boson that it wasn't enough. It's not that it wasn't enough. The problem is that as fallible human beings doing math, they wanted something else. But our argument here doesn't.
I don't know if
rely
that's
on fallible
entirely
human
true,
beings.
Alex. To be honest with you, I don't think it was. They were like, "Oh, we're fallible human
If-
beings." I think that just something working mathematically on paper and proof is not good enough for science to prove something actually exists.
Math is not explanatory. That's the problem with that whole thing. Like you're using, by the way, evolution is also something that appeals to math and some sort of theoretical post diction to tell a story. A lot of astrophysics and a lot of these theories that you're going to posit, they actually assume the philosophy of science to our favor. The philosophy of science precedes science, and you have to assume a whole slew of immaterial things before you do science. Science doesn't actually give you the things you're assuming, like universals.
So listen, this is our time to ask questions. You're wasting our time. So what does God do?
Sustains
life on earth.
Yeah. Sustains the regularity of nature. You don't have any evidence that that's going to maintain. That requires a sustainer.
So does God answer prayers?
Yes and no.
So there's a heck of an answer.
Yeah,
yes,
so
no.
both. What do you mean?
So
is that inconsistent? Hold on. Is that inconsistent?
Yes. Then the answer is yes. If he sometimes answers prayers, the answer
What's
is
the
yes.
inconsistency?
He answers prayers. Therefore, he interacts with the physical world.
And no, he doesn't have to answer prayers.
He doesn't have to. Fine.
Yes.
Do trains run on tracks? Yes.
Sure.
Sometimes they don't.
What's the
Sometimes
contradiction?
they go off the tracks.
What's the contradiction?
So he interacts.
Do you believe in the biblical God?
Yeah, the triune Christian God.
Okay. The Bible God does not answer with a yes, no, or maybe. The Bible God answers with a yes. Many times, the New Testament, Jesus, straight from Jesus's red letter words himself, says, "Whoever believes in me can ask for anything that he desires, and it will be given to him." So ask and you will receive. So in John chapter 15, verses 6 and 7, it says, "Whoever abides in me and my words abide in you, then you can ask whatever you desire, and it will
Jeff.
be done." So
I have a clarifying question because you're just preaching right now. It's funny that you left your Christian view, but you're still preaching it. Why should we abide by or even grant you your interpretation of the Bible at all?
You can interpret it any way you want. So John chapter 15.
I reject your entire interpretation.
Okay, so now, then will you explain to me what John 15 verses 6 and 7 say?
No, because the argument is no,
this
because
is
the argument. What's the topic of the debate?
You are wasting our time.
I know I am. It's called a technique.
Right, because you are afraid to answer about your biblical God.
No, that's a fallacy.
Then
please tell me. Then
explain to me. Your biblical God says that if you believe in Him, He will give you what you ask for.
Jeff,
can you demonstrate? Listen, here's the question.
I have a question.
Here's the question.
Clarifying question.
Can you demonstrate that your God will give you what you ask for right now, live on the screen?
No, that's irrelevant to God's existence.
It completely disproves the biblical God.
No, it doesn't. No, give me the argument for how it disproves it. If God doesn't do circus, premise one, God answers prayers. Premise two, if God doesn't perform circus tricks, he's not real. Great work, dude.
Premise one.
Yeah, do a premise.
If the biblical God is true, then the biblical claims could be demonstrated.
What? No, repeated. No, they're smuggling in a premise there. It's if the biblical God was true and the interpretation of the Bible, which I'm not granting your interpretation. You got a wild liberal view there. So if it's true that the biblical God exists and the interpretation and of Scripture in the Bible is true, it doesn't follow that your interpretation of the Bible is true. That's all you're doing, dude. You're just assuming your view of it and crafting a crappy argument that's invalid.
Okay, so is your interpretation of the Bible true?
It's not. I don't have my interpretation of the Bible.
So do you study the Bible?
Myself? No, I don't study the Bible just so I can come up with.
I agree. You're demonstrating.
Are you gonna let me answer? No, I don't study the Bible because I'll end up like you. Coming to your own conclusions.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Totally lost.
Exactly.
Yeah,
if you study the Bible, you will become an atheist.
No, that's not true. You're studying. You don't understand. First of all, the topic of the debate isn't whether or not Jff4Truth's hermeneutics is accurate. Okay, I know you wish that was the topic of the debate. The debate is whether or not God exists. We're talking about an ontological claim. We're talking about an epistemic claim. We're talking about a metaphysical claim. I've argued that there is a necessary mind that is the bridge argument, bridge conclusion to the Christian God. You guys can't even engage with my argument.
So can reality exist if there is no God?
No.
Why? I believe that it can.
Why? Well,
I
know
believe
you
that
do.
reality can exist without a God.
Full claim. There's no arguments, though.
What is it you said God does, Jim Bob?
I would say God sustains and God provides the categories in which we interact with. There's a transcendental category that's not identical to nature, to matter. I'll bring them on the screen so you guys must have missed them. Mind can't be demonstrated physically. Okay, God provides that.
I can demonstrate.
Hold on.
Demonstrate
I'm
that the mind
answering.
is
I'm
physical.
answering. No, you can't.
So
Regularity of nature. Okay, you're
Right.
going to prove. Well, you can do that in your cross-examination.
No,
you
can.
can.
Jim Bob, since
Yeah,
it's
that's
our
fine.
time, not yours.
Yeah, that's fine. Mind, okay. If you're going to argue that you can demonstrate a
You're
physical,
preaching on our time,
good.
Jim Bob. You are.
I'm answering your
proving
question.
that you're not willing to
Okay.
answer a single question.
What's
that
your
we
question?
asked.
You asked a question about whether God exists because I'm reminding you what the topic of the debate
Can you
was.
give me an example of let's take them one at a time. Can you
Okay.
give me an example of a mind without a brain?
No, that would assume mind is that human beings are the only one with mind. Again, you're smuggling in human beings.
No. I am just going with
Animals
the
have
examples
minds.
that we
Yeah, you're
have
going
in
with
the
induction.
physical world. You are
Yeah.
making something up.
You
So
can't-
you've made
look,
up the idea that you can have a mind without a brain.
Michael, hold on. Let me clarify.
Okay.
Your view can't tell me what a mind is. So you asking me, can something exist without a brain?
I can tell you what a mind
You can't
is.
tell me what it is. You don't even know what you're asking.
I can tell you what a mind is.
Tell us.
Mind is an accumulation of thoughts that are generated through experiences, and they are housed and developed and demonstrated through the brain.
Cool.
We can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that the brain is the source of all thoughts and images.
Cool.
We know this. This is
You just ended the
basic.
debate. You just ended the debate. Why? Because if the debate is whether God exists or not, and we're talking about the truth of the matter, you just reduced truth to your singular brain.
No, truth
did.
is true for all people, no
really?
matter whether you believe it or not.
Why is it that all of our brains aren't the same, but the truth is the same?
Well, you
Jim
may
Bob.
not know the truth, and you obviously don't.
That's
But
an answer.
the truth still exists. That the Bible is absolutely
Okay.
unreliable.
All right, good. I just want to demonstrate that even this isn't even our cross-examination. I got my opponent to tell me that truth exists, yet he can't hold, taste, smell, weigh, produce truth as a material object. So,
All right, but before you go, Jim Bob, there's 2 minutes left in your guys' cross-examination. I paused the clock. If you guys want to give WiFiGospel like a rapid-fire round here in the last 2 minutes, you can, or you can keep going with Jim Bob for your last 2 minutes.
No,
It's up to
I
you.
want to hear from Alex. I want to hear from
yeah.
Wi-Fi
Okay.
Gospel. He's
There's
been
2 minutes left.
Too long.
probably a better idea.
So, Alex, again, since it's trying to nail Jello to the wall with Jim Bob, so since if you're proposing something that you have no examples of, what is the difference between that and a made up thing? So if a mind can exist without a brain, but you have zero examples of it, how is that different? This mind that exists without a brain, how is that in any way different than a made up thing that doesn't actually exist?
You're asking me to give an example of in creation, an example of the creator who is completely distinct from creation. I can't give you an example of God in the universe that isn't God.
Can you think of any other created thing that you can't give an example of the creator?
What do you mean? I don't understand.
I don't
the
know.
question.
I'm looking at a computer right now. I can give you an example of the creator. It's the Apple company. I'm sitting in a chair.
Yeah.
I could give you an
No, it's-
example of
yeah,
the
but
creator.
Apple
It's-
didn't create the universe that the computer
Well,
exists.
so
right.
so let me tack on to this.
So you have no examples. You just make things up.
I can't give you an example of God that isn't God.
Right? What's the
God is
difference
unique.
between something that you have no example of anywhere and a made up thing?
Within my worldview, God is completely unique. So asking for the example would be an external critique. It's not an internal critique.
Yeah, that's a category error.
So
I don't
listen,
use
guys.
fancy language.
Listen.
I just argue from common sense.
Right. But-
So when we look at a computer or a phone or any created thing, we all agree this is a truth statement. We all agree that the ability for this thing to function, or whether it's a painting, the skill level that we can observe, this reflects on the creator, right? The thing that is created reflects the skills of the creator. And so we would all agree to that, correct?
You're using creation in a colloquial way. We don't create things the way God creates things. God created things out of nothing. We just take them out.
We manage material.
All right, Jeff and Michael, I'll give you one last question here, and then we'll wrap up your cross exam.
So let me finish up this thought that I had. So created things reflect the skills of the creator. And so when we observe our creation, we see natural things that have natural explanations that are reproduced over and over and over. This is what science is. It's the study of nature, and we can predict the future based on what we know has been proven with scientific observations. But yet your claim that God exists is going against the very nature that we observe. So
unbelievable.
God is illogical, unscientific, unnatural, outside of space and time, yet we have no examples of anything in our creation that reflect what you think is the creator. So this creation is a naturalistic creation, but yet you're claiming
make it a question, Jeff. Make it a question.
Unnatural.
Make it into a question, Jeff.
So how can you assume that the creator of the universe defies all the laws of science?
Well, first of all, like Alex said, that creation and creator are distinct things in our view. Your question assumes that all things are material, including God, which is a category error. Second, our reality does reflect a creator, because our reality includes immaterial things that are metaphysical, that aren't grounded in nature.
All right, that'll do it for Jeff and Michael's cross-examination period. We're going to move over to the left side. Jim Bob and Alex, you guys will get 20 minutes.
Can you time my 10 and I'll evenly split it?
Yeah, I'll let you know when it gets to 10, and then we'll go to Alex in case you get carried away, Jim Bob. You know, we know how you can be.
Yeah.
No, but you guys will get 20 minutes total. You can split it up how you want. I'll let you know when we get to 10.
Cool.
Yeah, go ahead when you're ready.
This one's for Michael. Michael, do you hold that all truth is ascertained through empiricism and sense data?
Yes.
Okay. So if it's a truth statement that all truth is ascertained and apprehended through sense data, is there sense data that can demonstrate that truth?
There's just a track record, I would say.
No. Track. Hold on a second. A track record is not identical to what the claim is. The claim is, this is a truth claim. All truth is ascertained through sense data. That's a truth claim. That specific truth claim, where is the sense data for that truth claim?
Again, I don't claim to have absolute truth. I claim to be doing the best I possibly can in a infinite vacuum on a rock.
Michael, I asked you a very specific question here.
I'm trying to answer your question.
No. Listen, I'll listen again.
Okay.
If you're making the claim that all truth is acquired from sense data, if that's a truth statement, I'm asking for all truth that we've
ascertained thus far.
Hold on. All truth that we know about is ascertained through sense data. That's a truth statement, right?
Mm-hmm.
That truth statement, where is that ascertained through sense data? That truth statement, because that's a conclusion, right?
Right. Again, the only way I can answer the question is that my life experience has led me to believe that is the case thus far.
Okay. Also, I have a question for you, Mike.
I don't have an invisible friend
that's okay.
feeds me.
That's okay. I didn't ask about that. Do you believe in rights?
In rights?
Do you believe human rights exist?
Yeah, the concept, sure. I mean,
the concept. Is it justified to believe in the concept of rights without any evidence and structure our entire society with guns and put people in jail based on a concept that you can't demonstrate physically?
I'm gonna have to think about that because I don't even follow the question.
The question is, do rights exist? You say, I think so.
Yes, we've come up with the idea of rights.
Cool,
because we're empathetic creatures.
Hold on. I didn't ask about your evolutionary views. Right. I asked you, do rights exist? You said you think so, or yes, they exist as a concept, right? So if they don't exist as material, then you don't have evidence for rights, correct?
No, I do have evidence.
What's the physical evidence for rights, please?
They're not a physical thing.
Oh, so all truth doesn't come from sense data.
No, listen. Rights are developed based on observational data. When humans listen,
no, you don't get this. No. I didn't ask
so
you.
You don't want the answer to your question.
I'll get you in a second, buddy. Don't worry. Michael, I just want to demonstrate, and you can go back to the drawing board.
Sure.
And think about this. But your assumption is that truth comes from sense data. You think rights exist, but there's no
experience.
Well,
there is sense data for all rights.
Jeff, I'm not asking you.
I know you're afraid of the answer.
No, I'll get you in a second. I told you, calm down. Michael,
I'm gonna get you, Jeff.
If you say I experienced rights, you're gonna have to point to sense data that's identical to rights.
Rights have been malleable. They've evolved. I know you don't like that word, over time. And it is only through my current observation and my current experiences as a person in the 21st century in the United States of America that I have an understanding of
I don't want the story. I don't want a history channel. Okay. I want the ontology.
Developed based on observation.
Shut up, Jeff. I'm talking to Michael. I'll get to you in a second, dude. Tighten your bib. Listen, Michael. The reason I asked this question is it's an ontology question, is where I'm asking for the status of rights in the world. You're saying my experience. Okay, that just shifts over the goalpost to experience. Is there any sense data of your experience out in the world?
Say that again?
Is there any sense data of your experience? You don't appeal to your sense data out in the world, because your experience is of the sense data. So your experience of sense data is actually not found as sense data, correct?
Sure.
Okay. So if it's the case that your own experience isn't experienced as sense data, you are in fact appealing to something outside of sense data. So your first premise, all truth is acquired from sense data, is actually false, because your assumption of a mind and experience is actually not found in sense data. You just assume it internally that you have an evaluator. Now, I'll move over to Jeff now. Jeff, you said you can materialize the mind. Please do so for the audience.
So when you have a head injury, a car crash and a head injury, that affects your ability to think and walk. No.
No? Are you sure?
Not a significant one.
Okay. Not a big one, but a big enough one.
So we know that people who have head injuries and car crashes, it affects their mind. It affects their ability to think.
No. Jeff, stop it. Don't tell me a story about capability that's lost by damaging hardware. I asked you a very simple question, Jff4Truth, lowercase truth, is this: if a mind exists, please demonstrate that it itself is physical. I didn't ask for a story about brain damage, given that hardware is damaged. I asked you, what is the mind? What is its substance, being that you're calling it physical, please?
So the mind is 100% completely dependent on the physical brain.
I didn't ask if it's dependent.
I know. You don't want to know.
No.
You don't want to know.
No. Listen to my question.
There is no example.
Jeff, stop. I'm asking you a very clear question. You're not capable of answering it directly. The question is, you said the mind is physical. I'm asking for the physical properties of the mind. You keep telling me a story about mind being dependent on physicality. Look, if I agree that saying the word apple depends on the medium of air perturbation, it doesn't follow that apple itself is made of air perturbation. Do you understand? Now, what is the mind made of such that you're claiming it's physical, please? You made the claim.
The mind is not made of anything.
So
the mind is what is the product of the brain.
Is it physical?
The mind is a non-physical concept that is based on.
Hold on. That's all
that
I
is
need.
Completely.
I don't need the rest of the story. I don't need
Let me answer the question. So the fact you're obviously not interested in having a legitimate conversation.
It's not a conversation.
There is no example of a mind outside of a brain. There is no example.
That's irrelevant to whether or not you can physicalize the mind. And you just bit the bullet, just so you know, audience. He just said, well, the mind is immaterial. He just said it's immaterial. Now, Jff4Truth, Michael, our entire argument rests on the notion that both you, the atheists, and us, the Christians in this case, assume immateriality in this material reality. You just demonstrated. A mind is immaterial. You just said it, Jeff.
Well, that was Jeff's answer, not mine.
Okay, but he just said it. So, Michael, if you want to switch back and say the mind is material or physical, you can give it a try.
Well, I would just reiterate what you just said. The mind is physical.
Oh,
There's
what
no
is
such
it?
thing
What
as
is
a
it
mind
composed
without a
of?
brain.
No,
You have no example of it.
No.
I don't deal with
That's
things
not
that where the sample size is zero.
Michael, can I say words out of my mouth without air perturbation?
No.
Does it follow that meaning is material merely because it depended on air perturbation?
No.
Okay, great. So like the mind, you can't physicalize the mind by saying, well, the mind seems to be dependent on a brain. That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking whether or not the mind itself is material, is physical, not whether or not you think it's dependent on physical.
But we have
Those
examples of words without air perturbation everywhere. In
meaning.
Meaning. My laptop is capable of talking without air.
That's right.
Everything.
Yeah,
but you have zero examples of a mind without a brain.
I don't understand.
This
isn't your this is not your cross-examination, Michael.
Okay, well,
you wasted our time, Jim Bob. You completely stalled on every question we asked.
What? Look, you didn't
answer a single question we asked.
That's because you preached most of the time, Jeff. So look, here's the thing. I'm going to go back to premise. How much time then do I have?
You got 1 minute left.
1 minute.
It'll get to 10.
Look, truth. You said truth exists, right? Now, from your view, a physicalist view, both of you are holding a physicalist view right now. If truth exists, you're going to have to tell me in what way it exists, because from our view, truth is universal and conceptual and doesn't exist in just one mind, because that wouldn't be universal. That would be a particular. Because it's universal and mind dependent. Now, you're saying minds are brain dependent. We're saying concepts are mind dependent. If we discover the truth, that means the truth existed as a type of concept for us to discover it. And if that's the case, you've actually necessitated a type of mind that's universal and comes before your ability to discern it. So, Alex, go ahead.
Awesome. All right. So I just want to bring it back to my opening statement. This is the crux of my argument. I provided a syllogism. If humans know things, then the Christian worldview is true. Humans know things. Therefore, the Christian worldview is true. Either of you can answer. I don't mind.
Premise one is absolutely
He's asking you. He's asking.
Hang on, let him ask the question. Go ahead, Alex.
Do you know anything?
Yes.
Okay. What do you know, and how do you know it?
I know what I have learned through observation.
Okay. And what did you use to make that observation?
My brain.
Your brain. Okay. So your reasoning. I mean, I was thinking more about sense data, but let's go with reasoning. How do you know your reasoning is reliable?
Well, through the abundance of observable evidence. So evidence will either convince you of that what you believe or think is true is true. The more evidence you have,
use
the
your
higher
brain to observe
probability.
that evidence?
What?
Did you use your brain to observe that evidence?
Yes.
Okay, so you just gave me a circular argument. You said your brain is reliable because you've used it in the past to reliably observe things.
You can be convinced of something that's not true, just like you said. You can think you put gas in your gas tank, but be wrong. So what the way you would know whether you put gas in your gas tank is to put something in there to find out if there's actually gas in the gas tank.
But if you could be wrong, do you know it?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay. Could you be wrong about everything you claim to know?
I don't think I could be wrong about everything. I'm speaking English. That is an absolute indisputable fact. I cannot be wrong
about
that.
How do you know that?
Because I know what the English language is. It is not debatable. It's not disputable.
Could you be a brain in a vat?
Could I be a brain in a vat?
Yeah, receiving signals through a computer that you're not actually experiencing anything?
No.
You couldn't, and you can prove that.
Well, I'm more capable of proving that I'm not than you are that I am.
Prove it.
Do you see a computer? Do you see a vat anywhere? There is no vat. There is no computer.
Okay,
I am a person.
Michael, do you know anything?
Independent of a computer and a vat. So now you provide some evidence that I am a brain in a vat.
I will in a sec. Michael, do you know anything?
I believe so, but I'm open to maybe I don't know anything.
Okay. And could you see how a worldview that produces something to say I don't know anything would be contradictory?
Possibly, yeah, sure. I can see that.
Okay. So should we hold to contradictory worldviews?
Well, sometimes you have no choice. I suppose. I suppose I could be wrong about everything. I don't think I am, but
All right.
should we hold a
So-
contradictory worldview? What choice do I have? By saying that an
You could hold the
invisible
Christian
friend
worldview.
told me everything, so I don't have a contradictory worldview? Can't get there with you, Alex. Sorry.
All right. No worries. Do you hold to determinism?
Help me out with that one. Give me a good definition.
Basically everything that happens is predetermined by prior states of the universe.
Everything that happens. I don't have an answer for you. I'd have to really think on that one,
Okay.
Alex.
Do you believe in anything immaterial? Actually, no worries. That's completely fine. I accept that answer. Jeff, do you believe in determinism? Do you hold to determinism?
No.
Okay. Why not?
Why do I not believe that something outside of me determines everything that happens? Because I have no evidence to believe it.
Okay. Do you have any evidence to believe that you actually control what you do?
Yeah, I can raise my
Yeah.
right hand right now. I can raise my left hand right now. I can
That's-
control it. I can even wave my arm if I
and you
want
can
to.
prove. All right. So you don't believe in anything immaterial, right?
Yes, I believe in logic and reason and truth.
Okay. And they are immaterial.
Yes.
All right. So can you point? Can you, if logic is immaterial, that means it existed before we did, right?
Yeah, it can exist whether humans know about it or not.
Where
Sure.
does it exist?
In reality.
What does that mean? What is reality?
Well, assuming that there is some place outside of space and time is completely irrational. So in other words, let me put it this way: the Earth existed before humans, and it followed laws of logic and science and reason, even though there were no humans to observe it.
Okay. And those immaterial things exist in reality, but you can't point to them.
Correct. You can demonstrate them, but you can't point to them.
Here's a question that you gave me earlier. All right, can you give me any examples of immaterial things that exist in reality that you can't point to?
Logic,
Other than that.
truth.
Okay. So these things, would you say that these things are concepts?
Yes,
Okay. Where do concepts exist?
in the mind. In fact,
Okay.
these concepts only
So
exist
before
in
the
human mind.
and animal minds, all right, only in the human mind. Before human minds existed, did these concepts exist?
Yes, they exist, even though there's
Okay.
no humans to know about it.
So they do exist in the mind or they don't?
They exist, even if there are no humans that know about it.
Okay. So they don't exist in the mind. Because there's no minds and you say truth exists. So that means they don't exist in the mind.
So even if there was a time when the Earth existed, but there were no humans,
Which there
then
was under your
it would
worldview.
be a true statement that the Earth existed. There was probably trees and
So
plants,
then-
and it would be true that there are trees and plants on Earth, even though there were no humans to observe it.
Okay. So truth doesn't exist in the mind. Yes or no?
Correct. Truth
Okay.
exists
So it doesn't. So you were wrong.
outside of the
before.
mind.
Okay. Can you point to it?
No,
So where does it exist?
it's immaterial. When you're
Okay,
asking where does it exist, is
realm
an
does it exist
inappropriate
in?
question.
Okay. All right. We'll move on.
The understanding of truth and
In your
logic
opening-
the understanding of truth and logic only exists in the human mind. Now, animals
Yeah, but-
use
so what do they refer
logic and
to?
truth,
The understanding of it, what does that refer to?
the mind.
So they do
Right.
exist in the mind.
The understanding of truth and logic
Okay.
comes from the human brain.
Is the understanding of truth and logic the same as truth and logic?
No, they're different.
Okay. So the understanding of it refers to them. Where is the reference? The referent.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You said that truth and logic are different from the understanding of truth and logic. So you said
Yeah,
the
because-
understanding of truth and logic exists as a concept in your mind. Where does actual truth and logic exist?
That's an inappropriate question, assuming that there is a location
You said-
where truth and
you said the fact-
logic exist.
What's
You
the
said the
status
fact-
he's asking? Sorry, Alex, just to clarify. If he's asking where and you're saying nowhere, he's asking what's the ontology? What is the nature of its existence? If you keep going back and forth between it is in a mind, it's not in the mind. If you agreed that the laws of thought govern reality before all human minds, Alex is simply asking, what is its status in the world, in reality, in hard reality?
The status is, if there's not a human to explain it, it's not understood.
Yeah, but if so in our worldview, logic exists in the mind of God, right? You could make some like Platonic reference, but then you would have to prove that this Platonic realm even exists. We're asking for that.
So how can logic exist in the mind of God, yet his very existence
the
is
question.
illogical?
It's my turn to ask questions. I asked you a question.
So asserting that logic,
I just said that's what
exists.
our worldview says. It's besides the point. I'm giving you an example of what I want you to answer like. But that's fine because I don't know how much time I have, but you said
You got about 1 minute, Alex.
All right, you said the fact that life, I have to press you on this. You said the fact that life only exists on Earth is the fact that God did not do it. Can you prove that life only exists on Earth?
So life as we know it only exists on planet Earth. I think there's probably life in other places, but
so
we have not observed
having evidence for life on. Or you just said you think that it probably does exist on other planets. So you completely contradicted your opening statement.
No, that's not a contradiction.
All right. So in your opening statement, you said the fact that life only exists on Earth is the fact that God did not do it. Do you believe that life only exists on Earth?
I only have evidence for life on Earth. There could be life on other planets.
So then the statement, because I wrote exactly what you said, the fact that life only exists on Earth is the fact that God did not do it. You can't use that argument because you don't even believe that, right?
So if I said that it is a fact that life only exists on Earth, then that's not what I meant to say, because it is not a fact that life only exists on Earth.
No worries. Yeah, I appreciate that. You take that back. Thank you. I concede my time.
All right, that will do it for the cross-examination period. We are going to go into 40 minutes of open dialogue. I imagine it will get a little bit chaotic at times because there's going to be 4 people trying to get in. Just try to respect each other's time to speak. Try not to overtalk each other too much. I will try to stay out of it as much as I can. But if there's too many interruptions or nobody can hear anything that's going on, or you derail way off track, that's the only time I'll step in. We will start with Jeff and Mike since they just got done getting cross-examined, but the floor is open. Gentlemen, you got 40 minutes.
I feel like this is just such proof that the God concept is shrinking. I mean, it started thousands of years ago because of volcanoes, earthquakes, and whatnot, and we've gotten to the point where we ask these, philosophical questions about truth and whatnot, and that's where your God lives now.
Do you know what a genetic fallacy is?
What's that?
Do you know what a genetic fallacy is?
No. I know what a fallacy is. I know what genetics is.
Genetic fallacy assumes that something's false or a position is false or an argument's false because of its origin. You're citing an origin that you're assuming the reason we developed theology altogether is to make an account for volcanoes and lightning. But in we didn't use any materialist events to argue our position. So that's a straw man. Now, I just want to remind you, Alex just did a fantastic job cross-examining Jeff. He got Jeff to demonstrate that his own view and I want to know your view on this, given that you just listened to that. He actually just said that logic is mind dependent. It's conceptual, yet it precedes human beings. I would add to Alex's argument that logic isn't just conceptual, it's actually universal. So now you have 2 traits that this concept has. It's mind dependent and universal. And now Jeff admitted that he discovers it, and it has some type of existence or ontology before all human beings. Michael, what is your view of that if you do accept both of those premises, that logic is conceptual?
I've already
universal?
stated it, but I'll restate it, that I find it very similar to if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one to hear it, does it make a sound? If logic exists before there's a mind to conceive it, is it logic? I don't know, and I don't think you know either.
Well, no, that's a contradiction. To say a tree existed before a past existed with things like trees, even if you didn't have a name of the tree and its behavior.
You're actually talking about sound.
Hold on, no, sound and the tree, they both appeal to the law of identity.
you're gonna have to clarify because
do you guys know what the laws of thought logic are, Jff4Truth? Do you know what they are?
I know some of them.
What are they?
Two things that are mutually exclusive cannot both be true. The law of non-contradiction.
Sure, law of identity, non-contradiction, and excluded middle. We'll just focus on the law of identity. If there was a past that consisted of objects, and we didn't have the names of the objects because humans didn't arrive on the scene, what Alex demonstrated is there's a past from your view, especially an evolutionary view, where there was a set of conditions and operations in the natural world that abided by the laws of thought. It didn't violate the law of identity. So it was bound by something, but the actual nature of the law of identity wasn't identical to matter. And so if we all agree on the panel here that a distant past without human minds still had some sort of laws of logic in place, and we all agree that logic is conceptual and concepts are mind dependent, we ask you guys, well, if you guys assume that like we do, what's the status? From our view, the status is the laws of logic. Logic itself exists in the mind of God because it's reasonable. Why? Because we all agreed concepts are mind dependent, and this particular concept is universal and precedes humans.
So let me see if I can explain this, because what I'm saying is that truth and logic exist even if there is no mind that understands it. So you're assuming that there is a mind that created it.
Jeff, we grant that it exists. We ask you from your paradigm, how does it exist? In what way does it exist? We have an account for the way in which it exists that's consistent with every other concept we know, mind dependent. You guys say it exists before humans. And we ask you, Jeff, in what way does it exist? You say you don't know.
So in what way does God exist?
Eternally uncreated.
Okay, so I believe that truth and logic are eternally uncreated, exactly the same as you.
Yeah, but you assume truth is a concept, so you can't have a concept without a mind. So you have an uncreated concept that's not bound by a mind?
So the mind does not have to create concepts. The mind is what understands. Jim Bob, you are completely impossible to have a conversation.
Give me one, one step at a time. You're a filibuster. So you just said you don't need a mind to create concepts. Can you give me one concept that you can demonstrate didn't require a mind?
So the earth can exist without a mind to understand it.
Dude, I didn't ask about the earth, dude. I just asked you a question because you just made a claim. No, you made a claim.
Jim Bob, truth exists whether a mind understands it or not.
How did you determine that? If you say that from your materialist view, you're going to have to demonstrate that the existence of truth has a particular kind of existence before a mind exists. That's what we're asking for, Jeff.
Truth is not dependent on a mind.
I know that's your position. If you say truth exists regardless of whether a human mind exists, I'm asking you, in what way, in what status does it exist? In which way does it exist? We can say a tree exists in a material way, right? We can say the wind exists in this physical way. I'm asking you, given that you're claiming truth exists before human minds, I'm asking you again, in what way does it exist?
In a way in which no mind can understand it.
In the mind of God.
Okay, let me jump in here.
No mind. God
Jimbo,
doesn't have a mind. So
Jimbo,
you're
you don't tell me anything,
that there is a God and that he has a mind.
Tells me nothing.
Jimbo, do you and your God have the exact same tastes? Or are you a sovereign individual separate from him?
Taste, no, that would also be a category error. Tastes are temporal and it's knowledge limited. So a taste or a preference would be a recollection and a judgment about the past, the present, and an assumption about the future. I wouldn't put God's mind in the same category as a human mind.
Right, nor would I.
Okay.
So, if you could somehow go back in time to before humans existed, and you could look upon Saturn's rings, would you? Are they beautiful?
Are they beautiful before humans?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say beauty. Yeah, I would say creation itself. If there was a creation story, because you're not critiquing the Christian creation, by the way, but if it was the case that there was a moment, right? There actually was a moment. Let's say the creation of everything preceding Adam, from our view, was beauty in existence. Yes.
It was in existence. So
yeah, aesthetic is another argument for God's eternally perfect mind.
A fun one.
But
go ahead.
Beauty is a concept in the mind.
Right. That's right.
But you're saying that it exists outside of the
Just
human
like
mind as well? That
yeah,
Saturn's rings
we
are
discover it. I think
universally beautiful.
Yes,
what
I
if
think
find them ugly.
Well, then you're
wrong.
ugly. Hold on, ugly would assume a privation of beauty.
No. Beauty.
Yeah, it would. What's the positive existence of ugly if you're going to say, I can just say something's ugly? Well, I'm saying by you claiming something's ugly, you're actually arguing the negative of a positive.
Jello against a wall. I don't know how to.
What do you mean?
This is my whole thing.
How do you not understand this?
Extremes of the evolution that the religion started as one thing, and we've watched it change over time.
So
and
did
now
truth.
We're down to this.
So did truth, though.
But
That's
you're
not an
building
argument.
off of the shoulders of the people that came before you, who had different opinions. They
how does that make it false? How does that make it false?
And now you're down to
how does
this
that make it false?
Shrinking
no,
existence.
Dude. This is a straw man.
God can exist.
No, you
now
wish.
He's in philosophical questions.
You
live in a volcano.
No,
now he's down to a philosophical
straw man. This is all
truth.
straw manning. Nobody said he lives in a volcano. If you're pointing across time that human beings have the impulse to discover God, that's actually a point in our view that human beings are actually placed, and it's in our nature to pursue truth. And guess what? From both of your views, truth doesn't even have a material existence. You're holding to a delusional
of evolution
view.
And the
evolution. So we evolved to believe in God. How are you going to debunk that
for a second, Jimbo? So the concept that the evolved mind, the false positive was better than a false negative. I'm sure you know that. That if you go down to the water hole to drink and you hear a rustle in the bushes and you assume that there's agency there, that is to say a predator, and you run away, 9 out of 10 times you're wrong, but it's okay because you live to another day. If you assume it's just the wind, on that 10th time you're eaten and you're out of the gene pool. So we have an evolutionary advantage of assuming agency, so we see it everywhere, which is why every culture we've ever come across assumed agency,
Michael,
because it was an evolutionary advantage to keep us from getting eaten.
I get it.
You gotta some agency.
Dude, I understand. It's a big story. It's a big
in the
story.
rain, in the lightning bolts, and in the volcanoes.
So much.
But
story.
that got proven wrong so many times over.
Look, dude,
that eventually you got
Michael,
to
stop talking for a second.
What is truth?
That's not how.
I was just finishing my thought.
It's
for
a
once,
filibuster.
Jimbo,
It's a
because
big story.
I know that you have a technique.
All right. One at a time here. Hang on. Let's let Michael. Hang on. Michael, you can finish your thought. Just make it concise so that Jim Bob and Alex can actually respond to it. Okay. I understand. Here, I understand. Here, just I get it. Hey, Michael, I get it. Just make your thought concise, and then Jim Bob and Alex try not to interrupt. But Michael, make sure you give him a chance to respond. Okay, go ahead, Michael.
I would love to give him a chance to respond. I don't even know if people heard my entire point, because Jim Bob's technique is to jump in, interrupt, because he knows he's getting.
All right, go ahead, Michael. Go ahead. You're up.
There was an evolutionary advantage to see agency. Therefore, every society, every culture saw agency in the movements of the natural world. They came up with this idea of a God. Slowly, those have been eroded as science has proven them wrong, and people have come up with different arguments over time. Science has knocked all those arguments down, and we are down to what is truth? Does it exist? Does it not exist? Okay, so that's where you exist now. These are tough questions.
Cool. I didn't hear any question, but
they're not proof of anything.
All right, you're done yet, or you need 18 more minutes? Okay, so evolution, if you're going to argue, we evolved to believe X, Y, Z, and then we learned that the sound in the bushes was false, and then we learned from that. Aren't you also by default holding that we evolved to believe in God?
Yeah, I think it is an evolutionary. There's something. There's plenty of things we evolved to believe.
Okay, how do you determine which beliefs we should hold to based on evolution, providing us some utility in which
That's the great thing about the human mind is that we do have evolutionary instincts, but we have these big brains and prefrontal cortexes, and we can override.
You didn't answer my question, dude.
Our instincts, when we look at a member of the opposite sex that we find attractive,
we can test claims to find out if what we.
I didn't ask what you're capable of doing. I said, if we evolve to hold false beliefs, I take it you also believe you evolved to believe human rights exist.
Right, exactly. Because when we look at the belief systems of our ancestors, many of them were forged in ignorance, and that is not to that is not to insult them. They were doing the best they could with the information they had.
Wait a
So they came
second.
up with these ideas. But to my belief system, that if you're still holding on to the things people believed thousands of years ago, you're doing the worst.
I would argue. I would argue
the
the opposite, Michael. I would argue the opposite. I think if you go back in time, people were more locally connected to cause and effect and harsh realities than now, where we're living in a luxury time where we can actually go into the conceptual realm and philosophy a lot more. Hence, rights. Now, if we evolve to believe in rights, but by your standards, your epistemic standards, we shouldn't believe in rights because that's not evidence. There's no evidence for rights. It's a total fiction, yet you guys believe a total fiction. Now, what I asked you, which none of you guys answer the question, is if we evolve to believe in true beliefs and false beliefs, and both we evolve to believe both out of utility, I asked you, how do you determine, like, why should we abandon a false belief and hold to a true belief if you both believe in something?
And observation.
Great. You didn't observe rights, but you both believe in rights.
No, we did observe.
Where did you observe a right, bro?
Jim Bob, we observed the abuses of other humans through slavery and all sorts of other.
No,
dude. So listen, we developed the concept, Jim Bob.
Unbelievable.
Are you afraid?
It's so low tier.
Let me speak?
Abuse is a description of behavior. You observe behavior. You attribute abuse to behavior, right?
And
yes
we developed the concept of rights based on the observation of bad behavior.
Cool. I developed if we develop the concept of sin based on our view of bad behavior, you have to now accept sin. Great work.
Jim Bob, you just said that ancient people were more connected to, what was it, causality? Then how come you don't believe more of ancient people's beliefs?
Because it's incoherent holistically. The Christian view accounts for all of it. And our view actually holds that truth can actually percolate across cultures and across civilizations. It doesn't follow that because they
percolate
hold
across
on.
Cultures and
Yeah. But here's the thing.
So why are you connected to the bad beliefs?
Michael, you asked me a question.
Objectively not
bad.
true.
Wait, hold on. Okay, let's get into morality. If you're assuming bad, right? Jeff holds that abuse is bad, even though we evolved to be abusive.
Morally bad. I'm talking about false beliefs.
Well, no, you're assuming false beliefs are bad, but aren't you holding that rights are a good false belief?
I didn't say rights were a false belief.
Okay, then demonstrate with evidence that rights emergent property, everyone. Cool. Rights evolved from which brain? Physically.
Which brain?
Which brain emerged?
The collective thoughts of
unbelievable
society.
So that's God too. By your own standard, if we were to if rights are an emergent property of brains collectively, and so is God, and you justify the existence of rights based on that standard, you have to justify the existence of God on the same standard.
Well, I agree that God is a bunch of people
got
together.
You didn't hear what I just said, dude. You don't understand what I'm saying. You don't understand. Listen closely. Listen closely. No, Michael, listen. You just justified believing in rights because it's an emergent property of a collection of brain. By your own standard, God is an emergent property of a collection of brains. So why is it that you hold to rights and you think that's justified, but someone is unjustified in holding a belief in God?
Because we can test the claim.
I asked Michael.
Well, I'm here too. I know, Jim Bob, you're scared of me.
Go ahead. You could test the what? Test what claim?
So when you develop your worldview of God based on the Bible makes all sorts of claims that we can test and prove. In 1 Kings chapter 18, it says Elijah, listen,
well,
Jim
Bob. Jeff, hold on. You're kind of getting off the track here. So Jim Bob's asking, why is it unjustified for Jim Bob or Alex to claim that God exists through immaterial means, and then you guys are claiming rights exist through some immaterial means, but you haven't provided empirical evidence, which seems to be the standard you're holding Jim Bob and Alex to.
Yeah, why can we?
So they're asking, why do you hold the standard for them, but not for yourselves when you appeal to rights?
Look at the rights in every different country on earth.
The rights, again, that's begging the question: where do you look at rights in the material world, dude?
Again, rights.
Listen, guys, listen.
Obviously,
are developed
in every
based on observation.
Really?
When we see, listen. If you don't let me speak, then I'm just going to
name the observation, dude. You're going to filibuster without saying anything. What's the observation?
Every time I open my mouth, I get shut down.
You're a nonsense
because y'all are scared to death to actually address what I have to say.
Tell us how we observed rights, please.
When you see one human beating another human and owning them as property, we observe that this is destructive and evil.
Really?
And so we develop the concept of human rights to say that it is inappropriate for one human to own another human and to beat them as your property. And when someone makes a claim in the Bible that whoever believes in Jesus can heal the sick, we can test that claim and prove that it is false. So when we look at the observation of the treatment of humans and deduce that beating people as property is evil and we should not do it, then wait.
There's a lot there. There's a lot there. Jeff,
to prove that God is fake and that human rights have a valid reason to exist.
Cool. You just said beating people and owning them is evil. I'm sorry. Did you observe evil directly as something in the world?
Things that cause pain and suffering are what I call evil.
Okay, cool. So how did you
especially if it's a decisive decision that someone made to cause pain and suffering?
Okay, cool. So how did you determine suffering is evil?
Someone causing someone else to suffer is what I call evil.
I understand that. I understand you defined it into existence, Jeff. Now focus here. How did you determine that causing suffering is evil? No,
logic and reason.
No, how?
Observation, logic, and reason.
How? What's the logical argument that
by
causing
applying
suffering?
My brain.
Okay, you're not going to do it. You're
intellectual.
Great work.
Thought processes.
Okay, go ahead, Alex.
Earlier you said
wait, Jim Bob. How do you determine? Because does God speak to you from the clouds and tell you what's evil?
No.
How do you determine it?
God delivered revelation, right? God has to be. Hold on, you're going to ask a question. Hold on, you're going to ask a question, not let me answer.
God said it's okay to beat your slaves.
Yeah, on what basis is it wrong, Jeff? Because Jeff don't like it? Cool. Listen.
Okay, so you do like it then. So you think that Exodus 21:20 is perfectly good to beat your slaves with a rod as long as they don't die within a day or two. Because you are incapable, Jim Bob,
to say that it's wrong.
Listen,
that's the thing.
Jim Bob,
you're yelling,
you are incapable. You're admitting that you're incapable of deducing that beating your slaves, human slaves, with a rod is wrong. You're not capable of making that decision.
No. Look, I just take your standard. I just prefer to beat slaves. How is it wrong, Jeff? It's your standard. I just prefer it. How are you going to argue against it, buddy? Silence. That's right. Now, to make an argument for the positive...
So I'm just glad that you admitted that you think it's okay to beat slaves.
No, that's not an admission. That's a reductio, dummy. So look, if morality... Let's see if we can get Michael in on this. Michael, I don't know if you hold to that morality is even a thing or it's just like a set of preferences, but is it fair to say, Michael, that morality as we define it is a standard by which we're prescribing behavior for human beings, including thoughts, actions, inactions, and so forth?
Yeah, that's
okay.
Sounds about right.
Is it fair to say that if there was an objective standard, if you just like kind of,
I wish there was an objective standard.
Right.
There is.
I understand, but if there was, Michael, maybe this is the reason you hold that there isn't. But if there was, wouldn't it be reasonable to hold the belief that if there's an objective standard for how we ought to be, that the gold standard of how to be would also be a being?
If there was an objective standard of how to be, the gold standard would have to be a being.
Yeah, is that reasonable to hold that?
No, I don't think so.
So could it be a rock?
No, it couldn't be a rock.
Could it be a deer?
But maybe we could reach a collective understanding of an objective standard at some point.
Well, that would be a consensus, and that would go against an actual objective standard, right?
Could come from neuroscience. It could
that wouldn't be objective.
Understanding of suffering, of empathy.
That wouldn't be objective. I'm saying, Michael, that wouldn't be objective. I'm talking about if it would be. No,
I think neuroscience could someday achieve an objective morality.
No, you just said
the nature of suffering and empathy. Yeah, I think we could reach something very close to an objective standard.
Empathy.
I just like that you defended
I didn't defend
idea of an objective morality by taking the side of the Bible, saying I like to beat slaves.
I didn't say that
in the Bible.
I didn't concede. You guys have to understand what a critique is.
No, I understood what it was, but by doing it, you were taking the side of the Bible,
and
which says you can beat slaves.
And
right.
And what? Is it wrong?
Absolutely.
How? You just
To
said
own
it
another
can't.
human being through the
doesn't it-
understanding of
isn't-
empathy.
No.
and
You just said
sovereignty.
no. You're in a contradiction, Michael. You just said you
No,
don't hold to
I don't
objective
care about
morality.
these
You
philosophical.
don't care about
contradictions.
contradictions, folks. There it is. You don't care about a contradiction. If you just said, Michael, morality is not objective, that is to
Yeah.
say it's absolute, and you just said it's absolutely immoral to own a slave.
No,
You're
no,
in
no.
a contradiction.
Absolutely immoral from our understanding of morality at this time. This
So it could not
evolving,
be.
changing thing.
Right. So
we
at a
call
different time,
morality.
it could, by your own admission, at a different time, it could have been moral, right?
No.
Yeah, you
But
just
people
said
had
it,
a
dude.
different understanding of morality at that time.
All right.
Morality is a
quick,
man-made
changing.
construct. Absolutely.
All right, let's give Alex a chance to get in here. Jim Bob, not borrowing you from the conversation, but let's give Alex a chance here. Yeah, go ahead.
Jeff, you
Go ahead,
said
Alex.
you observed evil, correct?
Can you repeat that, Alex?
I was asking Jeff just because he made the claim.
Oh,
but
okay,
I don't
okay,
know.
cool.
Anybody can answer, but Jeff, you said you observed evil, right?
Yes, I have observed
Okay.
what I call evil. Yeah.
All right. So if somebody else observes the same thing and they call it good, how do we know who's right?
Well, so if someone claims that beating your slaves with a rod is good, then we should try beating that person with a rod and see if he still thinks it's good. I believe that he will change his mind and say that it's no longer good when it's happening to him.
Okay, that's fine. Now, if you say that imprisoning someone is wrong, and I say imprisoning someone is right, and then you just tell me, well, somebody should imprison you, and you see if you like it. It doesn't matter if I like it. It matters if it's the right or wrong thing to do.
So if you will change your mind on what you think is moral based on whether it's happening to you or somebody else, then that is proof that it was always immoral. You just didn't care when it was happening to someone else.
It's right to imprison a criminal, but just because I wouldn't like to be imprisoned doesn't mean that imprisoning the criminal is wrong.
I agree.
Speaking of criminals in prison, if a criminal in prison who has done awful things to another human being, is refusing to get back in his cell, how do you propose we get him back in that cell? Should we apply force, maybe?
Yeah, by force, yeah.
All right. How violent should we get? What if he's really big and really strong and he's hurting other guards?
They follow the procedures that they've outlined based on thoughts that humans have put together on procedures that the police should use to enforce the law.
Yep, they call a riot squad in and they batter him with shields until he's on the ground, and then they put their knees on his back, his arms, and his legs, and forcibly cuff him and throw him in a 5x5 cell for 30 days.
All of which was determined by human minds.
So when you say beating a slave is wrong, that's completely fine though, to just to wrangle up a human being and throw them in a cell and leave them there for 30 days.
Sounds like the exact description of what you're critiquing.
So what we're talking about is that actually there is no objective moral standard. So is it objective? Is it objectively? listen.
So don't say
is it objectively moral to work on Saturday, to work on the seventh day of the week? Is that immoral? Is it wrong to work on the seventh day of the week?
If God still held that prescription for us today, it would be, but he doesn't.
Oh, so God changed his moral standard. So even God's standard is not objective.
No, Jeff, stop. Hold on a second. Just clarification here. God himself, ontologically, the very being, is the moral standard. It's not determined
and
by...
does he change or not? Does he change?
He doesn't change, no.
Does he change his moral laws?
No, you're now you're confusing it again, right? So I just told you, God being eternally uncreated and constant, he himself as the moral law, himself, the being, his laws himself, those don't dictate what's moral. He is moral. So even if we granted some sort of change or improvement or some different resolution over time, a progressive standard for God delivering his moral law to us, his prescriptives, it doesn't follow that he himself is changing.
He can change. Does God change his mind?
No, his mind,
the Bible says that he does.
Changes. What do you mean his mind?
The Bible says that God repented that he made man. So he flooded the entire world except for Noah and his son.
That doesn't follow that God himself changes.
Yeah.
If you change your mind, then yes, that necessarily requires.
No, dude.
If you necessarily requires that you change, that God change.
No, that doesn't even follow for humans, by the way. Does the nature of you being human change just because you change your mind about what you want to eat on Tuesday? Yes or no? Does your nature as a human being, as a category, change, as a universal category of being human being? Does it change? I'm asking you a question.
Bob, category error.
What's the category error? What is
You're
it?
comparing me to the all-knowing God.
That's my point.
So,
good
so
job.
God is all-knowing. He knows the future. He knows everything, but yet he changed his mind.
What?
A different set of rules and regulations for different people.
It's very easy. If I tell my child, look, if you interrupt me during this debate, I'm taking your iPad away for a week. But I know that if he does it, I'll probably take it away for a couple hours and play Minecraft with him later. When I do that, am I changing my mind?
Well,
or am I using a relational tool?
So you lied.
No. I gave him mercy.
You most definitely lied. If you said one thing and did another, that is a lie.
No, it's called mercy.
Mercy.
Yeah.
So if you say
I didn't give him the punishment, all right.
If you say I will take away your iPad for a week and you only take it away for 1 hour, that is a lie. You can justify lies as a Christian all you want.
What?
But that is a lie.
It's not always wrong to lie.
What are you talking about? When you commute, a lie is deceptive, by the way. If you organize a meetup with someone, Jeff, on Tuesday, and you call them and say, you know what, I changed the date. Sorry, you wouldn't say I lied.
If you said you would meet them
harboring,
if you said you would meet them on Thursday and you just don't show up, then you lied.
Yeah, that's not what we're talking about, though.
If you were harboring let's say we were in Germany in whatever year the Holocaust happened. If you were hiding somebody and then somebody knocked on your door and you said they're not here, is that immoral? No, it's not always
probably
immoral.
not. No.
Oh, interesting. Right. So your argument's toast.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
So I would say not all lies are immoral.
Oh, cool. So God lies and those aren't immoral then. There you go.
Not all lies. I didn't say lies are not immoral. I said not all lies are immoral.
Cool. How do you determine which ones are immoral?
Do you think unaliving the entire planet
I asked you
is immoral act?
Yeah.
You believe drowning innocent babies
for humans? Yeah, for humans, yeah.
Okay, so God is
God's not a human.
So God doesn't have to abide by. So God is supposed to be the gold standard.
Yeah.
Jimbo, close your mouth while I'm speaking.
Yeah, you're contradicting yourself.
Close your mouth. Then let me contradict myself without you interrupting me. Okay.
No problem.
Please zip it. So if God is the golden standard of morality, but yet you say God can unalive the entire planet and be moral.
Yeah.
Therefore, if he is the gold standard, we should be able to duplicate what the gold standard of morality is. So you have to say that it's perfectly okay when you think that they are not worshiping the right God or whatever.
Alex, you want to take this?
Can I pull you over on the highway?
We're
going on the highway and you're speeding and I put my lights on. Should you pull over?
Would I pull over if you flashed your headlights at me? No.
Yeah, or if I had maybe some like yellow lights on top of my car and I'm yelling out of my window, "Hey, pull over. Pull over."
I probably would not pull over, no.
Right. Good. And especially I know you have some daughters, you would tell your daughters drive to the police station because they have the authority to pull somebody over. If a cop gets behind you and you don't pull over, he's going to take your car out, right? Is it immoral for him to take your car out? Why can't I pull you over, but he can?
Because he's been given authority.
There you go.
Right.
But is it immoral for a police officer who has been given a police officer has not been given authority to unalive people?
He does. No, he has. It has to be justified.
America, at least,
It has to be justified. Yeah, no, you can
unalive. Unaliving somebody is not wrong.
Right, it's not wrong. Killing's not wrong.
Yeah, that
murderers.
So I mean, you kind of debunk yourself.
So how do you define? Is it killing or is it murder when God unalives innocent babies?
God doesn't murder.
So just arbitrarily, you say God is immune from immorality.
Listen how silly your argument is. Why are you using unaliving in the most brutal sense as opposed to just saying, well, God made it so we only live between 80 and 90. And God made it so we can't breathe underwater, and list all of the things you don't like. That's the reality of being human, right? Why are you pointing to things that you emotionally react to as wrong, like killing or flooding or drowning, when your argument would actually extend to all sorts of other things. Like, what if God was so good? Is it considered, Jeff, unaliving, equivalent to drowning? The fact that it's just a longer process of natural causes that we die? Is it the same category? Is it the same category? Drowning, God drowning the world, and God making it so that we die between 80 and 90. Is it the same wrongness from your view?
No, it's different.
Why?
Because one is actively causing the death of another, and one, I mean, dying of old age is a natural process. That's not the result of any.
No,
person.
His cause.
In your worldview, God has to send tornadoes to unalive people.
No, he doesn't.
And they are completely innocent.
No, you're skipping out on the cross. You're basically dodging right now. You know that if your interrogation is correct in its reasoning, you'd have to use the same reasoning that God doesn't intervene and make us live forever. Taking life, essentially, you're saying God taking life. You just don't like the matter in which he's taking life. The question isn't the matter, Jeff. The question is whether you think it's immoral for God to take life at all. Not just drowning, any way he takes life. You're saying it's wrong, right? Yeah.
So I don't assume that he is giving or taking life. That's your worldview. You assume God is the reason for everything, and you have no evidence or justification.
Whose view are you critiquing?
You just assert it's the God of the gaps because you don't know.
You just
something. You just put God in.
Wow. Whose view are you critiquing? Yours or mine?
Yours.
So you're saying God unaliving people with a flood is wrong. I asked you, is it wrong for him to unalive people in nicer ways?
If he's unaliving people, then that's inappropriate. No matter which
based on whose authority? Jeff's. Jff4Truth's authority.
Yeah, because I believe in subjective morality. I believe
so it's not wrong. Oh my God, dude.
So I determine what I think is moral based on observation. And if there is an invisible man in the sky that's causing children to get leukemia when they're born or 2 years old or whatever, then I believe that God is evil and immoral and unworthy of praise. You're worshiping a God that you believe has sacrificed his own son, and he was innocent, didn't do anything wrong at all. You believe that it's moral for him to unalive the whole world to make claims that he can send fire from heaven to burn up an altar on command, or that making claims that you can heal the sick. You believe it's moral.
So do you. Because
no, I don't.
That is your system. You just admitted is subjective. So based on God's, we grant God's preferences, and Alex and I are just aligning our preferences to God's. We're just in agreement. We're hanging out in the same corner, right? We just don't agree with yours. You determine, Jeff, what's inappropriate, appropriate based on your own subjective principles. If it can't actually be wrong if God is appealing to his own subjective principles, then.
So we can prove that God did not write the Bible. So when you're saying listen, Jim Bob, zip it.
What does that have to do with anything?
Because your whole worldview is based on the biblical God, and we can prove that God did not write the Bible.
What?
So your whole foundation of your ideology of God is absolutely 100% false.
So wait, the question isn't whether or not your opinion about whether or not God wrote the Bible. You just totally ran away from the topic at hand. Michael, do you want to add to any of this morality, or you want to move to a different topic?
I think maybe move to another topic. I feel like you guys.
There is 5 minutes.
Do we have any?
Yeah. Well, no. Listen, guys. Listen. There's 5 minutes left in the open floor. Michael, if you want to go down another route, you're welcome to do that, and then we're going to get to closing statements after that. Yeah.
If Jim Bob or Alex, maybe Alex, since he and I, if you got another topic on deck, Alex, I'd love to hear it.
I don't know if it's exactly another topic, but you kept bringing up, especially like in your opening, evidence, right? You need evidence for God, and you didn't seem to accept logical or philosophical things as evidence. Can you tell me why?
Well, I was just pointing out that I can't think of another example of anything that we accept as actually existing, a philosophical argument being considered sufficient.
Well, Jim Bob explained earlier that rights, you do believe in human rights, right?
Right, but human rights don't interact with the physical world and
Do they exist?
perform miracles. They didn't create the universe, right? But I'm telling you that there's a category error, Jim Bob, because they're totally different things. Human rights don't interact with the
system. It's
physical
not a
world in any
category
way,
error.
shape, or form, and they certainly didn't create the universe. So you're trying to equate two things that are so
No, I'm not equating.
different.
You asked for an example.
Right, and I'm giving you why that's a
Or I
bad
asked you for
example
example.
from my personal intellectual perspective. That rights exist,
But
but
you're saying
they're
Yeah, rights
immaterial.
exist.
So who cares? You're
Cool. That
arguing.
exists. Immaterial. Cool. Same argument.
You're arguing for something much more. You're trying to do an end run around
So
evidence.
here's all right.
We need evidence.
Here's a
to
better
prove
one.
Here, hang on, Michael. Let's let Alex get down his line of questioning here. There's only a little bit of time left. Go ahead, Alex.
With empiricism as an epistemology, can you tell me how you empirically came to the idea that empiricism is the only way to have good evidence?
I'm not saying it's the only way to have good evidence. I'm saying that I can't think of another thing that actually exists and interacts with the physical world, much less creates things that we would accept a philosophical argument as being sufficient.
Minds create things.
Huh?
You said minds create things. Don't minds create computers and engineer planes and things?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So if let's not get into the debate of the mind, but if it were the case, Michael, if it were the case, if you that a mind was immaterial and not reduced to physicality or just material matter,
that's a big if.
I know, but wouldn't
I'll
that
grant
be
it to you? Sure. For
that would be an example of an immaterial thing engaging with the material world, right? If I'm not forcing you to concede.
Sure. If there was a mind that didn't need a brain and it did stuff, then that would be an example.
A mind that wasn't identical to brain. That's the problem. That's why we're confused. You're saying any minds need a brain, but that assumes that there's a distinction between a mind and a brain. But when we press you on what a mind is, it's just the brain.
Well, no, I mean, maybe not a brain with AI, but it's currently nothing physical. Their mind is tied to something physical, and I'll leave it at that. I can't explain it. Perhaps not what we consider to be a biological brain.
What about dignity, human dignity? If you appeal to rights, you're also assigning some type of immaterial value.
Doesn't create anything or interact with the physical world in ways that should be testable.
Dignity. So
dignity does not interact with the world in a way we should be testable.
Okay, but should we? I know, but Michael, should we hold that human dignity is a thing, even though it doesn't interact with anything in the world?
Sure. If you want to, if you have some general airy definition of the word "a thing," yeah, dignity's a thing.
So this is why
you have a definition of a thing that creates universes, grants miracles, and you're trying to do an end run around the evidence by using a physical.
No, we're actually pointing.
Argument.
No, that's actually we're actually pointing to a whole slew of things that both Alex and I demonstrated that you both hold to, that assume an immateriality of a thing, like an object, like rights or dignity or morality or mind or any truth.
Any of the tasks.
Hold on,
God
I didn't ask if they what we're doing.
I've granted you that immaterial things exist.
Michael, what we're saying is that to say immaterial things exist, some of which, almost all of which, we've established are mind dependent and precede us.
Right.
It follows from our view that we're in the winning corner, being that our view actually posits, whether you agree with it or not, it actually makes an account. It provides an account for mind-dependent things that precede us. It gives an ontology. Now, you don't have to believe it. It's just that when you compare the two worldviews, you guys appeal to a bunch of immaterial things that you can't find in nature. Mm-hmm. You assume human dignity. You think it's fine to do that, even though it's not empirically demonstrated. You assume rights, even though you can't hold a right or find it in the woods. So there are all these things that you guys appeal to, and yet your cross-examination of whether God exists is empiricism, while you have a bag full of immaterial, invisible things in your room.
Right.
So are you admitting, Jim Bob, are you admitting that God is just a concept?
No, under your view, he is.
So yes, I agree. God is just a concept. But you're the one that's making the argument. You're comparing logic and reason to God. This is a concept that is only derived by the human mind. So you're admitting that God is just a concept that humans created.
From your view, he
I
is.
agree. Yes,
So-
in our view, God is a concept that humans created.
I know it. And I demonstrated that you guys arbitrarily pick between immaterial, non-existent concepts.
No,
that
we
you
do
think
not
are-
arbitrarily. No, Jim Bob. No,
Wait.
I can.
Yes, you do. Tell me. No, watch.
I'll
show you. Let me ask you a
telling you
question.
that you're wrong, and I'm going to
Let me
prove it,
ask
but you don't want to let me speak.
No, let me ask you.
All right, hang on. Jim Bob, ask your question, but Jeff he's
Jeff,
saying
you
there's a
answer
straw
this.
man going on, but go ahead and
Great.
ask the question.
If you can do this, you can tell me why is it we should hold to rights as immaterial, not demonstrated empirically? Why should we hold to that immaterial, non-existent concept and not hold to a thing called God? Why rights over and not God, from your view?
Because of testing and observation. We can prove through testing and observation that abusing other humans and owning them as property is immoral and destructive.
How did you test that?
Listen, Jim Bob, shut your mouth.
How did you test that?
Do not speak while I'm speaking.
Listen,
This
guys.
is
How did you
ridiculous.
test it?
Host, moderator, can you please mute him while I answer this question?
How did you test it?
I'm not going to mute anybody, but go ahead, finish your point, Jim Bob. You can respond, and we're gonna have to wrap up the open dialogue after Jim Bob's response. But go ahead, Jeff, make it concise, and then let Jim Bob respond.
So it is not inconsistent to say that we can hold to logic and reason, because we can test logic and reason and prove it to be reliable. But when you're especially holding to the biblical God, the biblical God says that he will make it rain when you pray, or make it stop raining when you pray, or you can ask for him to send fire to burn up an altar like in 1 Kings 18, or you can lay your hands on the sick and heal them. When you make claims that and you're believing in the God of the Bible, and the God of the Bible says that he will give you what you ask for, or he will heal the sick by the laying on of hands, we can prove through observation that God is not true. Okay. It is an absolutely consistent.
All right.
Let him respond. Let him respond, Jeff. Let him respond.
Okay,
go ahead,
just to summarize, because he's not going to answer this question, but I'll just summarize what his view is. I asked him, between God, from his view, being a concept we created and arrived at, and rights being a concept we arrived at, I asked you, how did you empirically arrive at rights as a demonstration? He says, we look at behavior and we call it immoral. I asked, now the next question is, what's the status of morality? Guess what it is? The status of morality is also immaterial and not identical to matter. And I'm going to ask again, how do you determine empirically that a set of events in the world that you call immoral is empirically immoral? Of course you can't do it. You won't, you haven't, and it's impossible.
Owning humans and beating them is immoral.
That's an assertion.
All right, we got to wrap it up there. We're going to get to closing statements now, guys. Very spirited debate. We're going to start with Michael and Jeff this time, and let Jim Bob and Alex get the last word since they opened first. Michael, Jeff, whichever one of you guys wants to go first. You got 5 minutes for your closer.
Was that to me, Michael?
Yep. 5 minutes for a closing statement, Jeff.
All right. So as it started out, the only way that they could win this debate is if God actually showed up, if God actually demonstrated his existence. So we know that God will never, ever demonstrate his existence in any observable, verifiable way. People who believe in God, and I know because I did it for many years, simply believe without evidence. That's in fact the definition of what faith is. Faith is the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things not seen. So you don't need any evidence or verification. You just believe because you want to. It's what you hope for. And there is no evidence that will support the claim. In fact, all the evidence is against the claim, because when you say you believe in the biblical God and the Christian worldview, the Christian Bible says that you will be able to heal the sick by touching them. This is verifiably false. So when you have a verifiably false standard, then we know through observation, through logic and reason, that your worldview is wrong. And as I said in the beginning, when you have to argue to defend the existence of God, you're demonstrating that you think you are more powerful than God. God can't speak. God can't act. God can't strike me down right now. But hey, if your God is real, bring it, show it. Then I would be willing to sacrifice to teach the world that God actually is real, because I believe in truth. That's why I have truth in my name. And the reason I'm so passionate about it is because I realize that I believed lies for 40 plus years of my life. Not only me, but my my wife and kids and my mother and brother and my family have been deluded into believing this ridiculous nonsense that there's an invisible man in the sky that's going to take you to a glory land after you die if you just believe in him. If you just believe that he actually sacrificed his innocent son. But the Old Testament, this is more evidence that the biblical God is not true, because the Old Testament says no one can die for the sins of another, and that it is an abomination to condemn the innocent and to justify the guilty. So Christianity comes along and says, oh no, remember all that stuff in the Old Testament? Nah, God's totally different now. God he don't choose Israel. Now he chooses the Romans and the Gentiles. So, and he says all those laws and regulations, the Sabbath day and, the eating pork, none of that stuff matters anymore. God has totally changed his mind. And now he likes the Gentiles, and you can heal the sick by touching them. But yet none of this stuff is true. Jesus promised he was going to return before his apostles died. He promised he was going to send the Holy Spirit to guide the believers into all truth. That has never happened. It's even written in the Bible that the apostles were arguing with each other, saying that, is circumcision required or not? So there was no Holy Spirit that guided them into truth, because they were fighting and arguing about what doctrine was then. And then after Constantine and the ecumenical councils, deciding what was doctrine for the church there, and then determining who's a heretic and how they should die because they don't believe or teach the right things. I am passionate about it because I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that the Bible is the most evil collection of writings that has ever been written, and it completely ruins lives, and it deludes people into believing things that are absolutely false. And we can prove that they're false, but people who want to believe this ridiculous nonsense will choose to believe it even when the evidence is overwhelmingly against it. That'll conclude my statement.
All right. Thank you for the closing statement, Jeff. Michael, you're up. You have 5 minutes on the clock for your closing.
Thank you. I would like to thank both Alex and Jim Bob again. This is fun for me. It was my first debate, so I'm learning, but you guys were great opponents, and I appreciate you giving me this opportunity. That said, I completely understand why the Bronze Age goat herder believed what he believed. It makes perfect sense to me. As I said, the tectonic plates that he couldn't have conceived of in a million years were moving the earth, the volcanoes, the lightning. These are concepts, these were physical realities that he had no evidence to tell him different. So he came up with the concept of a god. The Bronze Age goat herder was literally doing the best he could with the information that he had. But I know without knowing, I'm speculating that if I had a time machine and I could take the Bronze Age goat herder who believed these things, the person that wrote your Bible, and brought them to the modern age, and he looked around at what we have and he said, my God, how did you get all this? Airplanes, spaceships, skyscrapers, iPhones, you name it. And I said, it was a process called science. He'd be like, I'm going with science. Science has results. I'm 100% with science. That crap I believed clearly that was wrong. In his time, the Bronze Age goat herder was doing the best he could with the information he had. But if you still believe what the Bronze Age goat herder believed in the 21st century, you are literally doing the worst you can with the information that you have. And as far as these philosophical debates go, Jimbo, as you sit there laughing, Jim Bob, as you sit there laughing at me as I make category errors or whatnot, you kind of remind me of my nephew when I walk in and he's playing a video game. And I'm like, why don't you just go in the other room and get the bad guy or get the key from the wizard or whatever? He's like, Uncle Michael, he's so stupid. You can't do that. I'm like, okay, I don't understand the rules to your game, but I got news for you, kid. Real world's out here. It's not in these little philosophical debates. Real world's out here in reality. And your philosophical arguments for the God, which has physical properties and interacts with the world and is not just a philosophical concept. Ultimately, you're trying to argue for something that created the universe and interacts with the physical world with philosophical arguments. Far from good enough. Even if you defeated me 1,000 times because I strawmanned or argument from authority or law of the excluded middle, I'll never be convinced that this creator God that interacts with the world is real because you beat me in a philosophical argument. And with that, I thank you all. I close my argument.
All right. Thank you, Michael, for that closing statement. And let's start with Alex first for your closer. And then Jim Bob, while he's doing that, if you want to post the link for call-ins and whatnot, or get the link to your mods, whatever you got to do.
Okay.
But Alex, go ahead. You got 5 minutes for your closer.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to address both of you here, starting with Michael. Thank you for coming on to the debate because, like you said, this is your first debate. Coming on up here against Jim Bob, and I'm coming up, but Jim Bob is a veteran, and so I appreciate that. It's like getting in a cage match, right? And then you get punched in the face, and it's fun. Anyway, a couple of things about like empiricism. You want to hold to empiricism so much, and you want to say, look at science, look how great science is. It helps us to know things, and look at all of this great success and results that we have. Look at all these things we know. But when I questioned you, you were like, well, I don't know if I have a problem with saying I don't know anything. So it seems like you're speaking out of both sides of your mouth. And I just want to say to examine your worldview, to examine the fact that on one side, you're saying I don't know anything, or I'm at least okay with that if that's the case. But also look at all this science and look how cool it is and look what we can do with it. Right. Jeff, I appreciate you being here. When I had reached out to Michael originally, I had just reached out because I didn't know if Michael was even interested in doing debates. And I just know he has a Rolodex of people. And I said, hey, I'm looking for a debate, trying to set something up. Do you know anybody? And the first person he went to was you, which is very interesting because we both did podcasts. We both did episodes on his podcast. So that was interesting. I'm glad that you were here to have a second debate with you. The problem is, and I'm going to not mince words here, this is what happens when you step off of TikTok. TikTok is not the intellectual superpower of the internet. There's a reason why people like Jim Bob and Andrew Wilson and others do TikTok invasions. It's kind of like shooting fish in a barrel. If you want to get to the truth of the matter, seek out the experts in your field. And I'm not calling myself an expert. I would point to Jim Bob. He's been doing this for a while. He's a smart guy. He's an expert. There are other experts out there that you can debate, that you can have these conversations with, instead of talking to midwits on TikTok. Just want to put that out there. One thing that I noticed was you said, I thought you believed in objective morality. And I wanted to get down to that because you said morality is subjective, but then you called things evil, which is objective language. And then you said we can prove that things are evil. That's not subjective morality. That's objective. We also, when I pressed you on, you said you could prove it, and you prove it through observations. But earlier, when I pressed you on observations, I said, how do you observe it? You said using your brain. Whether that's sense data or as I went down the rabbit hole of reasoning, I asked you to how you could know your reasoning was reliable. And all you did was give me a circular argument based on the fact that you've reasoned reliably in the past. And that's not a justification for your reasoning being reliable. So you actually can't prove that anything is evil under your worldview. One, because you literally said morality was subjective. So that's a contradiction. And two, because you can't actually prove that the things you're using to observe with are reliable enough to observe things and come to true conclusions about them. A couple of things. They said that they don't know anything. We've asked them how they could know something, and they haven't been able to give us a justification for how they can know anything to be true. And again, this is because of their atheistic worldview. God's existence, and this was my whole argument, which you guys didn't really press us on our arguments during your cross-examination. That was the time you should have done that. You're not supposed to introduce new arguments, especially as a negative. You're supposed to attack the opening statements. God's existence is necessary for knowledge, and if it were not, then our opponents would have been able to establish at least one thing that they can know. We kind of talked about determinism a little bit. I would really start to get to understanding what your worldview entails, because to me, to Jim Bob, atheism, determinism is an entailment of atheism. If you can't point to immaterial things, or at minimum, physicalism show how immaterial things can impact material things, then determinism is the only conclusion you can come to. And determinism cannot give you truth, because the justification for my beliefs, if they differ from your beliefs, are the same thing: prior states of the universe. Ultimately, they were not able to refute any of the arguments that I or Jim Bob gave in our opening statement. And I think it's safe to say that this debate was over pretty quickly. But again, thank you for putting your money where your mouth is and taking the debate. And thanks for Jim Bob for having me, and thank you, Zen, for moderating.
Absolutely. Thank you for that closing statement, Alex. And Jim Bob, you have 5 minutes for your closer.
Okay, cool. The topic is on God's existence. The key word here isn't actually God. The key word first is existence. It's important for Alex and I, as we established in both of our openings, to point out that knowledge claims and truth claims aren't all approached the same way. And so the first thing we're going to ask an opponent for whether or not God exists is, what is their ultimate definition for existence? Does it include categories? Well, we've established through our argumentation and cross-examination that it actually does include categories. There is an immaterial aspect to reality that's not reduced to materiality. Both of our opponents accepted the immateriality, some type of status that precedes a human mind that is conceptual but not identical to matter. Because of the type of thing we're referring to, in this case, truth, laws of logic were the specific ones we used. The opponents, assuming a past, by the way, that they can't prove empirically, you have to assume a past. They assume a past that produced human beings. Well, that past had to abide by the laws of logic. They couldn't violate the laws of logic. The tree couldn't suddenly be not a tree. The water, the chemistry, the evolutionary biology that they're going to appeal to is all going to be dependent on it following these strict conceptual rules. Yet the conceptual rules are not found as material. So what is their status? This is an important question, because the Christian view, the only way you can get to arguing the existence of God, you have to make a bridge argument and first distinguish what the opposition is determining what exists and what doesn't. Well, they think rights exist, but then they don't. They think rights are totally reasonable to believe in, even though there's no actual evidence for rights. They think it's reasonable to assume morality, even though it's subjective, even though there's no physical evidence of a thing called morality in the world. They believe truth exists. There's no material or physicality to the thing called truth, yet they hold that it exists. Further, they pressed us at the end there. They threw in that little thing about faith. Well, if faith is a belief without evidence, right? The assumed hope for things in the future, if you took the biblical claim, that still applies to atheism. You guys can't even do science and induction without induction. And induction is wholly dependent on the faith that the future is going to be like the past, and that your recollection of the past is going to be like the future, and etc. You are putting your faith in your own reasoning. Guess what? Your own reasoning can't be found in matter. You put faith in your own reasoning, in your evaluations. You put your faith in your evaluations. Your evaluations aren't found as data. There's no data out there you're observing called your evaluations. You grant yourself a mind. From our view, the mind is metaphysical. It's created for a reason. Logic is created for a reason, so we can know our creator. Their view is that, no, we use logic and reasoning, so we don't have to believe that God's created tornadoes and stuff, and we can move along. Well, guess what? That's a teleological claim. We didn't even get into that, by the way. You guys would have been in worse condition if we got into teleology. But especially Michael here holds this view that, well, we're basically progressing. We're learning more about the world, and we're able to leave behind these archaic thoughts. I think it's reverse. I think the atheist view is actually primitive, and the theological view is advanced. Why? Because you're not examining a larger view of reality, which includes immaterial things. You're just granting yourself a bunch of things. You're just saying, well, I grant myself the entirety of the philosophy of science so we can do science. And we ask, toward what? Why? What's the reasoning? Well, we know things. Yeah, why? Why is that important? Why should we move ahead toward your arbitrary definition of a goal? Why should we not hold to a God belief even? If from your view, we evolved to believe in God. If we evolve to believe in rights and they don't really exist, but you think we should believe in them, why shouldn't we believe in God from that view? So not only is it rational from our opponent's view to believe in a bunch of things that aren't empirically verified, but they can't even tell me what methodology they're going to use to kind of like put aside some, dismiss some, and hold others. It's completely arbitrary. With that said, the pursuit of truth, Michael, is going to utilize philosophy. You can't do science without philosophy. So this kind of modern notion where philosophy doesn't even do anything for us, guys, that's actually false. Philosophy is required to do science. Even your statement, we should get rid of philosophy, is a philosophical position. Even the statement, we have the real world out here. There's a real world out here. That's a philosophical statement. That's a view of the world and how it is. You're doing philosophy. So without adding too much else, I do appreciate you both coming on. Michael, thanks for being a good sport. I am an aggressive debater. It's not personal for either of you guys. It's just my style. And that's how I developed. Okay. I evolved to be an aggressive debater. Okay. With that said, I do appreciate you both coming on. And again, Michael, if you do want to debate in the future, evolution, I invite you if you want to do a one-on-one on evolution, whether or not it's
I love that.
theory. Yeah.
We'll talk about that later.
Cool.
And I appreciate your style, Jim Bob. It wasn't offensive to me. I just, I was just identifying it for what it was. But thank you, and I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thank you guys for the closing statements. And again, a very spirited debate. At this point, the debate portion of the stream is considered to be over. I hope you guys agree that I was pretty neutral throughout the debate in terms of moderation.
You were
at
great.
This point, I appreciate that. I do have some questions, though, for the atheist side. Sure. If I were to take off my moderator cap for the time being, I don't want to eat into too much of time because we have a few callers backstage I want to get to. But Michael, to bring it back to the rights thing that I know was brought up more than a few times, you said rights do exist. You do believe that, right?
I mean, yeah, we identify something we call rights. Sure.
Okay. And you said when Alex asked you, you said it was a category error because you said rights don't interact with the world. That was the main delineator that I heard you appeal to multiple times, that rights don't interact with the world.
They certainly do.
What I don't understand,
but they don't seem to interact with the physical world either. Yeah.
Well, this is what I don't understand. So presumably you would say, you have a right not to be punched in the face. And if somebody comes and punches you in the face, the right that you had is now violated. Mm-hmm. So how is that act of violation of the right not interacting with the physical world upon a physical phenomena occurring?
Well, the concept of the right doesn't interact with the physical world. You're talking about assumably a person that interacts with the physical world. I'm not claiming people don't exist.
Well, I'm saying like when the punch occurs, the right has now been violated. The right seems to be now interacting with the physical world being violated or not violated, right?
I don't see that at all. There's a physical manifestation, perhaps, that one could say was my right. Your right to swing your arms ends at the tip of my nose, which I believe was an old I'm not sure if that was a libertarian belief, but I read it in anyway. That said, I don't see that. The physical interaction was between physical beings. The right just remains a concept that doesn't.
But the right then changes its ontology from not violated to violated based on the punch occurring.
Sure.
So that seems to me like an interaction with the physical world.
Along the lines of creator God performing a miracle, coming in and turning water into wine or something like that, I would say that they do not seem to be on the same level to me. But
I would grant you that it's not. I would grant you this.
I was married to somebody who has a doctorate in philosophy. It's not my strong point.
So I would grant you this. I would grant you this, Michael, that it's not the same type of interaction, but it is still an interaction, and that was the delineator that you gave.
The right did not interact
with the right still. The right did.
The person interacted with the physical world. The right did not interact.
But isn't a concept? Isn't a concept?
The right cannot do anything. A right cannot do anything. So you can violate a right, something that is perceived as a right, but the right itself cannot do anything. The right is just a metaphysical concept. And this is why they were comparing a right to God, because God also is a metaphysical concept that also apparently cannot do anything.
Well, the claim on the left side of the panel is that God does interact with the world and God does act in the world. And I just don't see how this follows that a right being changed from not violated to violated based on a physical punch in the world is not an interaction with the physical world.
The right didn't do it. The right,
but the physical world did something, and then the status of the right
so what
changed.
did it violate, though? That's the thing, is like, if I jump, I'm violating a downward force against me, right?
Sure.
I'm like, I'm not violating, I'm going against it. Like, I can press an opposing force. So I guess what Zen is asking is like, because I don't actually hold to rights. I think there's just force happening, and there is some sort of ethical view of when you use force and when you don't. But if you said rights exist in a sort of conceptual way, Zen's question is important, because in the act of doing something, fly on the wall sees people doing something to other people. Where is in the interaction the thing being violated? Can it be violated if it doesn't exist? That's, I guess, the question.
Right. Well, let's take the word right and transfer it to law, because if you punch me in the face, you've actually broke the law. Did the law punch me in the face, or did Zen punch me in the face?
The action
seems so clear to me that the law did nothing. The law is just the concept, and Zen punched me in the face. And I'm having a little trouble getting on board with you guys. And I know that you guys scored some good points in this debate, but this particular one, I can't even get my head around that the right punched me in the face.
No,
I don't think that's the claim, but I don't want to hold up too much on this, because again, we got a bunch of callers. I do want to ask Jeff something though, real quick, and I try not to take up too much time again here. Sticking with the rights thing, when you say rights can be proven based on observation of abuse and things like that, that is your position, right?
Well, I don't think I use the words rights can be proven, but we can demonstrate that some rights are justified and some are not. So someone may claim that they have a right to own a human, but I believe we could demonstrate that owning other humans is inappropriate.
I hear you. Okay. So, and you are of the belief that morality is subjective, right?
Yeah. Even the God of the Bible has a subjective morality.
So there's no truth to a moral claim.
There's no truth to a moral claim. Maybe clarify or give an example.
Well, if morality is subjective, then it's preferential. There's no truth value to a moral claim. It's just preferences, right?
So probably on every situation, when we're talking about punching somebody in the face, you say, is it immoral to punch somebody in the face? You say, yes. But then what if these people are getting paid millions of dollars to put boxing gloves on in a ring for entertainment and punch each other in the face? All of a sudden, punching people in the face is not immoral anymore.
Right. So that would speak more to the point that, if morality is subjective, there's not exactly a truth value inherently on your view to moral claims. So okay, hold on, Jeff. Hold on. I don't want to take up too much time on this. So what I'm getting at here is, if you're saying we can demonstrate rights exist based on an observation of abuse, which is a moral claim, but you can't prove the moral claim, then you also can't justify the demonstration of the right you're saying exists.
No. So
you understand that?
Proving something is true and justifying something is totally different. So, we can justify that, defending yourself from a home invader is moral and acceptable and good, even if you had to cause harm to that person. But to prove it, so it's just you're not proving moral stances. You're just justifying moral stances based on circumstances and situations, and they change, based on circumstances.
But there is no truth value to those, correct?
I don't think that I would associate truth with morality, because it is subjective.
Okay, all right. Is it true that rights exist?
Well, whenever humans get together and establish human rights, then they exist. Before,
is it true that they exist? Is that true?
If humans establish rights, so in other words, the right to live free and not as a slave, that exists because we have a law that ensures that.
I'll just ask one more time, straightforward. Is it true that rights exist?
I would say no. If I understand your question, it is not true that rights exist.
Okay.
Now,
all right. That's good. That's all. That's fine.
Right? And yes, so the abolition of slavery is a right that truly exists, but it only exists because humans codified it.
Okay. I'll just wrap it up with this, is that I think that is a problem based on the standard that you appeal to, in that you presumably would believe in things that are true, but you believe in rights, which you just said are not, they don't truly exist. So it just seems like there's an inconsistency there.
Further, the entailment of it is also that there could be a time in which, beating people and abusing them is fine, including if there's no moral truths, then it could actually be justified that if you presuppose God exists from your interrogation, that flooding the world could actually be not immoral based on your own standard. It's not absolutely true because there's no moral facts under your view.
All right, Jeff, you can respond to that if you want, and then we're going to go to callers and super chats.
Let's go.
I'm going to use the facilities real quick while you bring in the callers.
Yep, go ahead. So I'm going to weave in super chats and callers. I'll try to get to all the callers. Guys, the queue's already full right now, so we probably aren't going to get to everybody, but get in there as soon as you can to increase your chances. Mumble says, first, thank you, Mumble, for $2. David James Flood gifted 1 membership. Sean says, does WifiGospel live with Jay Dyer?
Oh, the background.
Is that a real background, or is that a green screen?
I'll leave that up to your
if it's a green screen, that's a really good green screen. But Retro Reister Gaming says, Jim Bob, I am supposed to be at work all day, and you drop a debate like this. There goes my productive day.
Not bad.
It was a good debate.
It
was a good debate. Mud says, for $2, I'm here because I'm not gay. Thank you, Mud. B Twixt says, can you just ad hoc, I think he means ad hom, zen the entire debate? You guys all failed at that. Sorry. Big Time for $2 says, Ortho Bros for the win. Ortho Spurg out. Steve says, just argue for a Christian theocratic state and have them tell you why it's objectively immoral to have. Do you want to respond to that, Jeff?
Repeat the question. I can't see it.
It says, just argue for a Christian theocratic state and have them tell you why it's objectively immoral to have. So is it objectively immoral for a Christian theocracy?
Theocracy. So I believe Christianity is immoral. It teaches that the greatest love that you could ever show is to crucify them on a cross. And to threaten people with eternal torture if you don't believe that torturing your innocent son to death is good. Everything about it is immoral.
But not objectively.
I don't know if I answered the question or not.
But not actually, because you said there's no moral facts that are true.
So it is my subjective response that I would be willing to defend and justify through observation and reasoning that sacrificing your innocent son and threatening people with eternal torture is immoral and evil. I would justify that through my subjective observational skills and
skills.
Okay. Jordan Flores, $10 says rebuttal. Nuh-uh. Bruh Memento became a member. Thank you, Bruh Memento. Sean says, what else do we use to what else do we use to philosophy to prove besides God? Jff4Truth.
Well, Cole, I don't think that was for me. I mean, that's for them.
It was quoting your question, I think.
No, that was Michael's question.
What else do we? Okay,
and I think it's a good question.
Okay.
I'm just thank you, Sean. Thank you for the super chat. Cole Marshall, $5 says, "You got this, Jim Bob. I don't even think they understand what you just said in your opening statement." Holland, the goods, $10 says, "I don't know how Jim Bob tolerates these guys. I would go insane talking to these low tier arguments." Kobo says for $2, or it's like whatever the equivalent. If God real, why monkey got no hair on the butt? Thank you, Kobo. Betwixt.
Kobo paid $10 to say that. Wow.
Well, it's like $10 some other currency, so it's like $2.
Oh,
I don't even know. And then I'll read this last one here, and then we'll go to some callers. Betwixt for $5 says, "Do angels breathe oxygen?" Checkmate Christians. All right. Thank you guys for those super chats. I'll get to the rest of them after a couple of callers here. First one we got in here, Adam Dole. Welcome. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Am I coming in good?
Yep, you're good.
All right. So, Michael, you kind of inspired me a little bit. So, historically speaking, at one point, people didn't really have a well-defined understanding of the Earth, and they viewed the Earth as like an indefinite flat plane that went on to some time. And then over time, people people came to believe that it was round. Then they came to believe that it orbited around the sun, and they came to believe that it was oblate. And then they came to believe that there are actually like millions of planets, and we don't exactly know how many. See, the fact that this has changed over time leads me to believe that the Earth doesn't actually exist. I'm a no earther. The Earth isn't actually real because views on the Earth have changed over time. What do you think of that? Do you think that's a good reason to not believe in the Earth?
So, but the Earth is a physical, material, definable place. I compared to the concept of a God.
No, it isn't. Well, when I go outside, I just see the ground. I don't see an Earth.
Well, get in a plane, buddy. Climb a tall tree. I don't know what to tell you.
Okay, so Jeff, I have a question for you. Does Donald Trump exist?
Yes.
Okay, is Donald Trump going to appear for us right now?
Well, we could see him on video right now. Yeah, we could demonstrate his existence.
Oh, okay. So pictures are evidence. I can point to you towards Renaissance paintings of God. Would you accept those as evidence of God?
Okay, so paintings are not necessarily true. And nowadays, you can, AI is amazing. But
exactly. You could very easily make fake images of Donald Trump. You can fake a video of Donald Trump right now. So my question to you is Donald Trump going to appear for us right now?
Did Donald Trump promise that he would respond to your request? No, he didn't, but God did.
So Jeff didn't answer the question. I'm going to ask you the question again. Is Donald Trump going to appear for us right now?
No.
Okay. So now I want to note that Jeff believes he's more powerful than Donald Trump because Jeff, according to his argument earlier, if God doesn't immediately appear, then that means you think you're more powerful than him because you're defending his existence.
You misunderstood my argument.
Jeff just defended Donald Trump's existence. However, he also admits that Donald Trump is not going to appear. So Jeff actually believes he's more powerful than Donald Trump.
I think I'm more powerful than that fat, weak sack of shit.
You didn't listen to my argument, and you're just.
I personally believe that you do not have control over the United States military, and having control over the United States military makes you significantly more powerful than any human being who lacks control of the United States military. Now, maybe you disagree with me on that, but that would be a hard claim to prove that the person with control over the United States military isn't the most powerful human on Earth.
I think I would agree with that.
Okay.
I don't understand your point.
That's all I have to say. Think about your fucking arguments. Some of them are retarded.
All right, thanks for the call in, Adam. Appreciate that. We'll get to our next one here. John the Albanian. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
I have a question for the modern day Socrates, Jeff. Are you familiar with church history and early church history?
Yeah, I wrote a book about it.
You did. Okay, nice. When do you think the church was founded?
After 70 CE, when the Romans destroyed the Jews in war, and they needed to create a new Jewish Messiah that would justify the destruction of the Jews.
Okay, that's a nice thought. But 70 AD, great. So you believe that there was an early church over there, and you can see it historically, right?
I don't believe that there was a church in the first century. No, second century.
Then what
Christianity
happened?
developed.
Wait, what happened at the Book of Acts?
It was written in the second century.
Oh, it was written in the second century, but the Council of Jerusalem had the apostles present.
No, so it's a fictional story. It's not a true story.
How do you know that?
Well, just study it. You'll know.
Well, no. Okay, I am studying it. In fact, I have 3 books open in front of me. Where did you get that?
So you think seeing Jesus floating up into the sky is a historically accurate claim?
Can you answer the question? Where did you get the information that the Council of Jerusalem was fictional? Name one scholar. Just one.
There's most scholars.
Just one.
Most scholars know.
Name one.
Most scholars. I don't have have to name a scholar. That's appealing to authority anyway.
What's
It doesn't
most last
matter
name?
what
What's
scholars
most
say.
last name?
Most BS?
Mostly BS.
I don't appeal to scholars. I don't look at scholars.
Oh,
I know
okay,
when
cool. So Jeff,
Listen.
you appeal to
Okay.
I made it the frick up,
Ugh.
and you should believe me because I wrote a book
People
and I don't know
float.
what I'm
So
talking
listen, caller, listen.
about. No,
Do you believe that humans can float up into the sky?
I believe that Jesus Christ, who is God, can.
Okay, so you suspend reality and logic and reason and all things that we observe to be true, and you believe a book simply because it is written in a book. Do you believe the Spider-Man comic books that
I
people
believe.
can actually
Wait.
crawl up the side
You
of
think?
buildings?
Wait, hold on. You think it's illogical to believe that God can do anything that God can do?
I believe it's illogical to believe an ancient book that makes supernatural claims
When
that
was
we can
okay?
listen, dude,
When
that
was
we
the
can
book written?
demonstrate are false.
When was the book written?
2nd century. The New Testament was written in the 2nd century.
No, when was it canonized?
In about the 5th century.
No. Oh, you do know a little bit of church history. I thought for an idiot, but that's okay.
No,
That
no, it.
means that prior to the book's canonization and prior to the book, that Christians were going off of something else, meaning we don't just rely on a book, right?
So,
Come on,
so
answer.
they weren't going off of people healing the sick and raising the dead. I know
What?
that
Wait, why not? How do you know that?
because there's
you
no
made it up?
historical record for that, and there's no justifiable reason to believe
There's
in
no
supernatural
historical
things that have
record
no
for that.
evidence.
Okay, there's no historical record for that. Do you know who Saint Onesimus is?
I didn't hear you or understand you.
Do you know who Saint Onesimus is?
No, I don't know who you said.
Oh, it was in the book Philomeon in the scriptures. Saint Onesimus was a disciple of Saint Paul, who was also the head of the Church of Asia Minor, and then Corinth, who had successors that were historically written down, and their acts done not only raising the dead but healing the sick were all recorded throughout church history. So, who are you appealing to, Jeff?
There has never been a verifiable, documented case of anybody resurrecting from the dead at all.
There's never been, according to who, Jeff?
All right, we need you to wrap it up here, John.
According to anybody that cares about the truth.
Name one.
Me. I'm one.
Himself.
Oh, okay. Jeff is the sole source of authority
All right.
because he made
All
it
right.
the frick up.
You asked
All right,
me
we
name
got- we
one,
got it-
and I
we got
named
it.
one.
All right, we got to move on here. John, thank you for the call-in.
Okay.
Real quick, I do want to say Jeff does do live streams on TikTok if you want to press him on the history. I like to say one good thing about my opponents when I debate, and one good thing about Jeff is he does know a lot of early church history. I don't agree with the conclusions that he comes to based on that church history, but if you want to see a debate me and him did, it's on my YouTube channel as well.
Alex, are you a Protestant, Catholic?
I am Protestant. I grew up non-denominational. I became a Reformed Baptist. And then actually, this is interesting. After learning the arguments against determinism from Jim Bob, I started stepping away from Calvinism, at least philosophically speaking. I do see a lot of problems, but we're working through that. I wanted to debate.
Yeah, I was going to say you're probably cringing internally at all the Orthodox favored arguments that you're hearing on here.
I've been listening for a while, so
it's a very ortho-heavy community around here. But no, hey, everybody's got their own journey. So
Isn't it, Alex? Isn't it bizarre? Isn't it kind of funny that Bonson was a Calvinist, given how bad he crushed molecules, rational molecules?
Yeah, it's interesting.
All right, I'm going to read through a couple more super chats, and then we'll get to it.
Tonight you did it, but you didn't use the same terminology. But your debate with Mark Reed used the cupboard analogy from Bonson. That was awesome.
Right? Yeah, Pampers and is it
crackers in the pantry?
Yeah, crackers in the pantry.
Yeah,
that was cool. All
right, let me get through a few more super chats here, and then we'll get to the rest of the callers. If you guys want to call in, get in there quick because might not have time for everybody. Del Eugene Gu says, "If God real, why Fermi paradox?" I don't even know what that is. Do you guys know?
Fermi is like the paradox of like the space being so big, and forget how it goes. It's either
it was the Fermi paradox where he basically said, "Where is everybody?"
Right.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
There's aliens. Where are they?
Right.
All right. Eliatic says, this kind sick repetition of science tells us and we have evidence, and ignoring the actual argument at this point is just sick, not funny. Good. Thank you for the super chat. Mud for $2 says, if God real, why do all atheists have a lisp? Is that true? Do you guys, I mean, do you guys have lisps?
Absolutely true.
All right.
I've never heard I had a lisp before, but
all right.
perhaps I do.
Mumble $2 says, can anyone write and publish a book nowadays?
That's correct.
I mean, I guess you can. Yeah.
Self-published book. Yeah. That's a thing.
Mud $2 says, if God real, why can't we all be super flamboyant? Mud says, pretty sure bees create architectural masterpieces. I think that's a good argument against veganism, in my opinion.
I think he may have been responding. We got a little into beauty and aesthetics, which is actually a really interesting topic to try to explore from a theological view and from a naturalist view.
Sorry.
Good.
I was just thinking about it. That lisp comment, that what was that? Slight right-wing homophobia. Are we Trump supporter stuff going on there?
No one's afraid of gay people here.
But I think the super chatter might be.
No, he's disgusted by them. It's not the same as being afraid. You can have that joke, Michael.
Oh, I don't need that one. But I do like those guitars hanging behind you, Jim Bob.
You.
What do you got? Is that an Epiphone or a Gibson?
This is this bass or this is an orange wood rubber a rubber bridge.
Oh, no way.
It's awesome. The sound that it gets is so
that's like
cool.
A sitar kind of thing with those rubber bridges.
It has a twanginess to it, as low action twang. It gets you a sort of folky, almost a banjo-y tin.
Oh, I love it.
It's really it's not that expensive either. I'd highly recommend. Yeah, definitely.
All right, next one here from Montenegrin Warrior Race. He says, love your work, Jim Bob and Zen. Also, Zen is Jewish. Thank you, Montenegrin. Dan for $2 says, Justin Henley for $2 says, what are you guys doing? What is going on here? Dano.
They're doing a reference. Yeah, sorry. They're doing a reference to a previous stream.
Jordan for $10 says, crunch the numbers again. Justin Henley says, that's deep and I'm 14. Retro Reister Gaming. You like gematria, don't you? Yeah. Thank you. Marcus Antonio, $2 says, are you always going to the bathroom? I don't know what that's about.
That may be a reference to, I mentioned 1 Kings chapter 18 when Elijah and the prophets of Baal. Elijah was mocking the prophets of Baal, saying that maybe your God has gone to the bathroom. Maybe he can't hear you. Maybe you need to cry a little bit louder. So this is essentially a duplication of that, where we are Elijah saying, hey, your God is powerless and can't do anything. Maybe he's gone to the bathroom.
All right. Jordan Flores, $10 says, sola scriptura atheist. I do think that is an issue, in my opinion, that atheists often employ is they assume sola scriptura, which Alex maybe does believe in sola scriptura. I don't know, but I know that Jim Bob does not. So it's not a fair internal critique to just assume a surface level interpretation of scripture.
So let me respond to that, if I may. So I was a Protestant, and so when you believe that the Bible is the holy word of God, then you shouldn't have to trust another person to tell you what to believe. You've got the holy word right here in your hands, and so I did not want to just believe what other people told me to believe. I wanted to study the holy word and find out for myself whether or not what I was being told was true or not. So sola scriptura is saying that that we are going to decide for ourselves based on if this is the holy word of God. I can read it and understand it myself. I don't need to be told what to believe. And I believe that's the more appropriate response.
Well, yeah. I mean, the problem with that is that that's exactly what Zen is saying. It's assuming that when you read it, you're already deriving the true interpretation. But it also has a bigger problem, is that when you were a Christian and you held to that belief, sola scriptura is something that couldn't exist before the canon. If that was your ultimate authority, if the position is scripture is the ultimate authority, there was a time where Christianity existed and was practiced through traditions and other things that preceded the canon. So you have a problem that you just grant yourself the Bible. And it's not an accident, then, that most counter apologists come out of this kind of philosophy, is because that's the problem with the view that they hold to begin with. So it's actually, from my view, it's totally fair to reject Christianity from a sola scripturist position, because how could you possibly know the truth of the matter if you don't have a normative authority to determine whether or not you're interpreting something correctly?
So, Jim Bob, so you think, so you're saying that you should just believe whatever the priest tells you then?
Well, the priest doesn't tell me something directly. The practice, the Christian doctrine and its scripture was actually canonized and basically put into bindings for practice anyway. So it was a practical approach to scripture anyway that preceded the Gutenberg and by the Bible being on every corner and every dresser in a hotel room. You guys take that for granted when you were a Christian, Jeff. Is that wasn't even the purpose? So yes, do I believe? Do I appeal to the priest? Of course, but also there are priests who are somewhat partial to like heretics, like Origen and stuff. They try to some people pick.
Right. So you're demonstrating that priests are not reliable, but yet you're admitting that you're reliable.
I didn't say that. I didn't say all priests are unreliable. I said,
but even if one is unreliable.
No, I'm telling you something. The practice of Christianity, the tradition, actually is the thing that keeps the church in motion, and the interpretation of scripture. In my experience, the church that I'm entering, the Orthodox Church, is not sitting around interpreting scripture. It's not doing that. You're not sitting.
Are they healing the sick by touching them?
No, that's irrelevant to the topic. We're talking about sola scriptura.
Because we don't care what the Bible says.
What? No, that's assuming the thing in question, your interpretation of that. Okay.
Jeff, quick question. Can you prove nobody's ever been healed from being sick through a miracle?
So that's an inappropriate question, because it says whoever believes in me will be able to heal the sick. So I don't have to prove that there's never been a single case of it. But what I can prove is that there are people that believe in Jesus that cannot heal the sick, and that disproves the claim.
Well, how do you know they believe in Jesus?
They say they do. I did.
Is that all it takes? Is that all it takes?
I believe.
So
it's just a claim.
So demons can heal too. Then, from your right, that would be not a contradiction.
Well, somebody ought to be able to demonstrate it. If the Bible was true, somebody ought to be able to demonstrate it, but nobody can.
Well, Jeff, this is what I'll say: is that I could see why you would disagree with Christianity if that is the standard, that all you have to do is profess your belief in Jesus, and then that's enough, and now you can heal people. And then you say that, you do that, and then you can't heal people. I could understand why you're disappointed, because that's like a crazy promise that seemingly is unfulfilled. But from my view and Jim Bob's view, it's not quite so simple as reducing just to like professing the claim verbally and now you believe fully. No, because you could be deceived. You could think you believe. You could think in the fullness of your faith and in your heart you believe in Jesus, but you could be under prelest, co-opted by demonic spirit.
Yeah, you could also believe in Jesus and also only believe he's half God nature.
Yeah,
right?
You could have an improper understanding. All kinds of things could be going on. So
that believed?
Anybody been cured that believed?
Yeah. Have medical miracles been performed?
I'm sure there's endless medical.
They
so
have.
Why is God so choosy? Why does he never heal an amputee?
Why he make us not breathe underwater though?
Well, it's a good question. If it's a medical
Wi-Fi
miracle,
or hot?
Why does he only?
Wi-Fi or hot? Why do I have
cancer,
preferences?
Which goes into remission naturally. Always my cancer went into remission. Well, cancer goes into remission.
Michael, here's the thing. I understand that. Just so you know, you're starting in with debating, and this is your first one.
All right,
so it'll be easy. But you got to look at it from the perspective of there are fallacies, and if you want to debate more, this will actually improve your comedy as well if you study these, because your logic will be sharper. Is that you can't appeal to incredulity. You can't say, why not God do this thing? Because it's your own opinion. Now, if you want to present a logical contradiction of God's nature being, let's say, all good and all knowing or whatever, and then produce an event that you think is contradictory to his very nature. That is to say, he couldn't do otherwise. He would have to intervene based on his nature. Then you'd have an argument. But this whole why God not do this? Why is he so choosy? Well, that question is irrelevant to the nature of God or the validity of God or the existence of God. It's just your opinion of like, well, why didn't this great restaurant put the sandwich I like on the menu? That's essentially what your argument ends up being.
No, it doesn't feel like it, but okay. God just always seems to do things that nature does naturally.
Except for the things that don't have natural explanations.
Such as? I don't want to debate. You're
well,
right.
I'll give you one.
You can come on my podcast.
I'll do this. No, Michael, this will be really short. Do you agree that a miracle from your view can't be explained by the regularity of nature and physics?
I'm not aware of any miracles, but
right.
It would be a
violation. He's asking, is that what a miracle? He's saying, like, would you define a miracle that way?
Violation of the natural world.
Okay, cool. So that is to say, it violates it, but also can't be explained by it, right?
Sure, I suppose. Yeah.
Okay, so
but there's a lot of things we can't explain.
Okay, but is it
mean a miracle?
I know, but
let's make it quick. Let's make it quick, guys.
Is it true that the very existence of the regularity of nature and physics can't be explained by the regularity of nature and physics? That their very existence, you need them to explain things, but you can't use them to explain themselves, right?
So reality is a miracle.
Yes, under your view.
No.
Yes, it can't be explained by regularity and laws of physics.
Again, it all just feels like games with words.
Feelings. Well, feelings and
I live in the real world.
Let's move on. Are there any other audience questions?
Of the Bible are not.
Yeah. We do need to move on, guys, here. So we got Mud says, here comes the emergent property. Justin Henley says, Justin Henley says, I love this for the thing. Thank you, Justin Henley. He also says, Zen. Thank you, Justin Henley. 1 cup, 2 bears, $20 says, 1 John 4:8, anyone who does not love does not know God, because God is love. In this, the love of God was made manifest among us, that God sent his only son into the world so that we might live through him. Thank you. 1 cup.
Paid $20 for that?
Yeah, it's scripture.
I've got some. So just a couple verses down in 1 John 4:18, I believe it says that whoever says you should hate your brother and love God is a liar, and the truth is not in him. But yet Jesus said you should hate your brother in Luke 14:26. So that verse, 1 John 4:18, says that Jesus is a liar.
Hey, 1 cup. Go give $18 to the needy. They're reading this stuff for $2.
Thank you.
And everybody who buys your comedy tickets should also go donate.
Yeah. Don't pay for your comedy show and what you do, right? You little.
Like a lot of money. That's $100.
It's not
$100. Extanglia says, "Get him, Jim Bob."
Is it more than Theo Vaughn gets? Let me guess, Michael. When you finally make it to Jimmy Fallon, you're gonna turn down the whatever $8,000 they're gonna give you for your 3 minutes, dude.
I'm just shocked by the dollar amounts, people. If a ticket was $2 and somebody paid $20, I would be confused by it.
Well, I mean, Michael, you got to also keep in mind this is a donation-based platform, and Jim Bob has a vastly Christian audience. And statistically speaking, Christians are far, far more charitable than atheists are. Far more willing to donate to charity,
Michael.
Donate to churches, donate to Goodwill, donate to their content, their independent content creators that they support. Jim Bob's just got a really charitable audience. I mean, what can I say? I mean,
hey, go get him, Jim Bob.
Yeah.
I'm not besmirching you, Jim Bob.
All right, Maximum 911, $5 says, "Let's go, Jim Bob." Trevon Jackson, $10 says, 15 seconds into cross-examination, Jim Bob has already nuked them. 1 cup, 2 bears says 2 Corinthians 4:4. I'm guessing 4:4. In their case of God of this world, the God of this world has blinded the minds of unbelievers to keep them from seeing the light of the gospel of the glory of Jesus Christ, who is the image of God. Thank you, 1 cup.
Right, and that's a good tactic to demonize whoever doesn't believe what you believe. So
what's wrong with demonizing people from your view? Nothing.
And we are going to get to the last 2 callers, though, so hang tight, guys. Well Emmanuel, 50 pesos says, or is that, I don't know if that's exactly pesos, whatever. Send super chats to prove you're not a brain in a vat. Kobo says, this debate is giving me the dinner game vibes. Jim Bob and Alex should add this cruelty to their confessions for this Lent. Thank you, Kobo. Ruben Anderson says, I want to ask the atheists if there's a certain theory of epistemology they strictly hold to, and is epistemology a dead end if materialism is true?
That's definitely a question for Michael.
Michael's going to give a question mark on that one. I don't know.
Okay. All right. David James Flood gifted a membership.
Thanks.
Standard Homo sapiens gifted a membership. One Cup says, again, people that receive heart transplants receive personal brain traits of donor. Thank you, One Cup. MN Sportsman became a member. Maximum 911 gifted a membership. Standard Homo sapiens gifted a membership. Noah A, $5 says, emergent property tax. That's funny. Justin Henley says, evil. Clouds, Well, and Justin Henley says, well, we don't want to beat our slaves to death. Thank you, Justin Henley. Just Gerald, $50 says, who hurt you, Jeff? You don't have to respond to that if you don't want.
No, I do. So the church, when you lie to people and you steal 40 plus years of their life, teaching them to believe lies, that hurts.
Well, thank you for spending the rest of your life focusing on God.
All right, Extanglia gifted 20 memberships. Pedro Peckerwood says, Jeff is a hillbilly atheist. Thank you, Pedro. Kobo says, how do you test the law of identity, Jeff? Though wretched woman. I don't know what that means. How do you test the law of identity, Jeff?
I don't know what he's talking about.
Okay. Rachel Wilson gifted 5 memberships. Johnny G says, well, that settles it. Jesus didn't return tonight, so Jeff won. All right. HPN Nubcraft, blank super chat. Thank you, HPN. Maximum 911, Jim Bob, Easy W. One Cup, Two Bears says, John 18:38, Pilate said to him, what is truth? After he had said this, he went back outside to the Jews and told them, I find no guilt in him. All right. Thank you, One Cup. Silent Zero says, I have to breathe, therefore God bad. Thank you, Silent Zero. Mud, 100% chance Jeff prayed for God to make something happen or change something in his life, and God didn't do it right away, so now he's mad at Sky Daddy.
I prayed at least 1,000,000 times, and he never showed up. So it wasn't just once.
Well, it could have been the next time. You don't know that, Jeff.
Well, I've got a video on my TikTok demonstrating the last prayer that I made, and I think it's Janis Joplin's song that says, "Give me one reason to stay here, and I'll turn this car back around."
What was the prayer for? Just a curiosity. That last one.
For him to give me one reason to stay here, one reason to believe in him.
Oh, but did he?
Anything you want.
Do you think he answered you by having you focus on God every day of your life?
I'm focusing on helping people realize that God is a scam and he will ruin their life.
Still God focused though.
Yeah, I agree. I do intend.
We got to move on. We got to move on.
The rest of my life trying to help people realize they've been duped.
All right. Dano says, Jim Bob and Wi-Fi are our warriors tonight. Make it rain. Vampire Frog, Jim Bob defeating these guys was very homophobic. One Cup says, Jim Bob, it's not about your conclusions. It's about, can you recognize a pattern of teaching? 2 Timothy 1:13. Extanglia
says, to be clear, that homophobic Ricard, they're calling us gay. It's just so strange. It's been like 20 years since I've been around anybody that thought gay was an insult. But
well, no, that's just because you live in LA.
No, it's coming. Yeah, you're totally. By the way, if you're a comedian, you should be basically pushing back on all of this.
Well, you know how as comedians we depend on conservative Christian dudes for advice.
Well, I did comedy in LA, and it doesn't matter who you are. If you're going to be a comedian, you're going to have to be able to use language that people.
Of course, you have to use language. Just 20-year-old.
What is wrong with using the same?
Dude,
what do you say? No. If you grew up in a time, which you're probably similar in my age, calling something gay is just like a figure of speech. We want it back.
No, look, I agree that when I was a kid, we would call all sorts of things that were gay that had nothing to do with.
Now you just say homophobic instead as a slur.
Your super chatter there is definitely making some sort of little joke where they think gay is an insult. It's just strange.
What's wrong with it being an insult?
Huh?
What's wrong with it being an insult, dude?
There's nothing wrong with it being
So
an
then
insult.
shut up, dude.
Society's
Stop
moved
whining.
on. It's not an insult
Obviously,
anymore.
we haven't moved on because you live in a bubble in LA and we don't.
Can you tell us
Or
about
perhaps
your
you live in a
friend?
bubble wherever the hell you live.
Dude, you live in a bubble that's protected. Get over it. You're going to be a better comedian for it.
Hold on.
Trust
To
me.
prove you live in a bubble, can you tell
Yeah.
us about your friend
know
with
how
her cat?
comedy has traditionally been conservative Christian people
When?
making jokes.
Never.
The best comics.
Hang on,
On
Alex.
the,
Go ahead. Alex, go ahead. What's your question, Alex?
On our podcast, Michael, you did tell me about your friend with a cat who had a particular ideology about her cat. Would you mind sharing that with us?
Oh, which one was that? I have
Something about her cat's gender.
Oh, well, I do. Yeah, I have a friend that has a transgender cat, or so she says she does. I was also at a bar in LA not 2 weeks ago, and I heard one woman say to another woman, "Oh my God, our cats have the same middle name." So it's not to say that
Michael,
that LA is not a crazy.
All right, I've heard enough. I've heard enough. All right, we're moving on.
Level.
Extanglia, congratulations, Jim Bob and Alex, clear win. T King, $5 says, Jim Bob.
W's for 2 X's.
Jim Bob, thank you for supporting the special needs community by giving a great debate against such on the spectrum folk like these. We support autism. Thank you, T King.
You want to say how you're offended by that? The comedian
making fun of people with.
Oh, look at the comedian, dude. You have no chance of being a comedian.
No. I have a total chance.
Literally no chance.
Really?
Nothing. You got nothing. I mean, if you can't make that funny, you're not being a comedian. You're like, oh, that hurts.
No.
You're flinching. Every comment, you're flinching, dude. Stop. Grow up. Let's go. Be
It's
a
not
comedian.
matter of being grown up.
Dude, Michael,
It's
be a
just
comedian.
Calling somebody gay is not funny anymore.
No, be a comedian. No, make it funny.
I could make anything funny.
Make your being offended funny right
Jim
now.
Bob.
Good. Make me funny. Go. Come on, dude. You're the comedian on the panel. What are you doing?
I'm flinching at homophobic
You're flinching.
ableist
Oh my
remarks that aren't
gosh.
funny
Cry
anymore.
harder. Move on.
All right, Kobo says,
Hey,
Jff4Truth,
so funny.
there's no non-Christian historical record of Christians raising the dead. Suppose there was one. That's the one you trust. Okay. Blue Skittle, $50 says absolutely
Thank you,
nothing.
Blues.
Thank you, Blue Skittle.
It is interesting because you made the comment about the donos and Blue Skittle said nothing and just threw 50. That was good.
Brandon says, good to see Jeff not be able to mute and kick ops. That Brad says for $10, another charitable Christian donation. Thank you to that, Brad. Kobo says, if God real, why people give money to Jim Bob? Austin Graham says, Jeff, when you were a Christian, did you ever read the footnotes in the Bible to help you understand what was written?
Of course.
Okay. And before we finish up on those, we still do have a couple of callers I'm going to get to here. Try to make them quick, though, guys. Just want to squeeze in everybody. Chris, welcome. Chris Lestrange.
What's up, fellas?
Hello, Chris.
How's it going? So
That mustache is amazing.
Thank you. So because of my feelings, right, I really vibe with evolution. So I'm just a simple monkey from South Africa, and my great grandmother, yeah, she was a fish. So I have a question for our atheist friends, right? So if you were able to incapacitate a human in the sense of like a coma, but you take all physical touch, smell, everything away from them, can they in that sense still create something?
What?
Can a comatose person create,
Can a
like engage
comatose
with the world?
person- No
Engage.
sensory inputs, nothing. Can they still engage with the world, create anything?
I don't think so.
Okay, so have you guys heard of this thing called dreams? You can fabricate a whole story inside of your mind that happens. You couldn't
How do you
prove
know
it to
comatose people
anybody.
are dreaming? I'm not aware of that.
Can you disprove that they are dreaming?
Well,
What
they
if
can
you
do
were the one
brainwave
dreaming?
scans of comatose people. That's how you know they're in a coma, is based on their brainwaves. I don't think they're dreaming.
Okay, if you were in this state and you were dreaming, how could you prove to me
So
you
an
were?
imaginary state is what you're asking.
Doesn't matter whether it's imaginary or not. If something's happening and being
I know it doesn't
created,
matter
right?
if it's imaginary or not. I'm talking to Christians. That's all they do is deal with the world of imaginary.
You mean
Okay,
like
but-
rights?
Yeah. Unfortunately, in that same sense, right, if you could create something within your mind without any physical material thing in the real world. That's kind of what Jim Bob was trying to explain to you guys. And then it's where if you follow or you don't succumb to infinite regress, right? That's the whole argument for God. Eventually, if you would need something immaterial to even fabricate material itself. The same thing that we can witness with human minds coming up with something immaterial and then bringing it into the world.
Okie doke.
Just you guys aren't going to say anything to that.
Jeff, you got anything for this bizarre analogy?
It didn't make sense to me. I didn't understand it.
That makes it better.
I'm not sure. Zen may have been called to his fatherly duties or his bodily duties. Extanglio, why is Michael sitting like Stephen Hawking? It's a good question, Michael. Why are you sitting like Stephen Hawking?
You can make fun of me.
Can I make fun of Stephen Hawking?
Well, he's
disabled, right?
But he's
dead.
Feelings.
He's on the screen.
Depends. It's punching up.
Well, here I have a joke. I have a joke for you, Michael. That makes
by
fun
the
of
way,
the disabled.
I was bored blind in my right eye, and I do kind of. I have a weird center of balance.
Hey, I have a joke that I want to see if it passes your test for offensiveness and also attacking people who you think
I don't have
attack.
a problem with offensive jokes, by the way, Jim Bob.
You don't think making fun of the disabled?
Funny. I don't think gay is a punchline or disabled
what about making
is a punchline.
Okay. So let me just throw one at you. Okay,
let's hear it.
So these days, Michael, it's like you could barely say a joke about anyone. Now you can't make fun of disabled people because apparently they're unable to take a joke, right? Well, isn't that just one more thing they're incapable of? He laughed. See, it's possible.
Look, Stephen Hawking is floating by us right now.
It's possible.
I don't know if I laughed because it was funny. I laughed
at
the absurdity of the situation. But you know what, Jimbo, Bob, I'll be honest with you. I'm going to be totally honest with you. I do get a vibe off you that you are a funny guy. You are a smart guy. I'm sure you say you did comedy in LA.
Mm-hmm.
And do you still? Where are you now?
I just do basically my own form of comedy as a live stream. Which, if you're a comedian, you should just do the same instead of hanging out in a bar forever. You know what I mean,
get mostly club gigs now. I don't do bars, but
yeah.
That said, I do get a good vibe off you, Jimbo.
Good.
I bet you're a funny guy. I don't doubt it for a second.
Awesome.
How could Jim Bob be funny? He's a highly offensive individual. I mean, I don't know if you know Jim Bob.
I'm a bigot.
How could he be funny?
I don't know Jim Bob, but he seems to have timing. He's got wit. I think Jim Bob could be funny.
That's very interesting.
I don't hear from. Maybe I should just bring up Corinth to add a complete disaster.
Do you do comedy streams?
Me? Not like you wouldn't see it as like a stand-up format, and you'd probably be offended by at least 38% of it. But I recently did an actual stand-up in a small venue in Vegas where I actually had to revisit writing, memorizing and all of that. So that was fun. It's just that I just can't get myself to go to a place and, even if I'm given 10, 20 minutes, like to sit in the place, you know what I mean? Just wait in the place.
Yeah.
And just wait around and like hang out, and hang out with other comedians. I don't know if you still like that, but I don't know if there's anybody I'd rather not hang out with than a comedian.
Well, I came out of the world of music, and to this day, I probably prefer my musician friends, but I have plenty of friends who are comedians. And for the record, Jim Bob, on the LA scene, I would say I'm closer with the right-wing comics than anybody. I pride myself on the fact that I'm friends with the people I find offensive and disagree with the most.
Nice, good to know that.
Yeah, I draw that line that the things you say on stage don't make you. That's not you. That is what you think is funny. That's different than who you actually are.
Right.
As a person,
Jim Bob.
Corinth, why don't you just bomb the whole panel? Because I know you want to.
Okay, I don't even want to bomb the whole panel. I heard Alex was a prot, and the bloodhound in me started hyper-focusing.
Oh, here we go.
Alex, you took an issue with epistemic fallibilism. What do you mean by certainty?
Correct. I like to go the route of indefeasibility. Just the fact that if nothing can overturn what you call knowledge. So like not that it can't change in the future, but that nothing can change what the prior state of it was.
Are you certain
right.
that that's the case?
All right, I'm back. Sorry,
We have
my
score.
my Wi-Fi cut out there for a little bit.
You're certain. So it's impossible for it to be not that case. It's impossible for certainty to mean anything other than that.
Sure.
You think it's impossible for certainty to mean literally anything other than the way Alex
I
just described it.
I'm pretty sure there could be other definitions of certainty, but that's why I like
Okay, so
indefeasibility.
if there are other possible definitions, then you can't be certain that that definition is the definition that certainty is.
Okay, so use indefeasibility. I don't like the sophistry, but I understand. what
It's
you're
not
saying.
sophistry. You took
I mean,
a
it's-
really strong sense of epistemic grounding,
Well, all right.
and
so
now you
fallibilism,
can't actually get over it. You
fallibilism
took
is
certainty,
self-defeating.
and you're not even certain
All right.
of what certainty
Are
is.
you a fallibilist?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. Can you give me the magic level of justification that distinguishes a belief from
Sure,
knowledge?
phenomenal conservatism.
No, the level of
I
justification.
told you that's justification. Phenomenal conservatism.
What percent is that?
It's not a quantitative thing.
Okay, so you didn't give me a level of
I
justification.
just gave you the level of justification. That's the justification theory that I
No.
subscribe to.
That's fine, but
Alex, the
One,
issue
it's
is
arbitrary.
you failed your own standard. You can't even justify your own claim
I'm-
here. Whatever this
infallibilism by
weird
the
pivot you just tried
impossibility
to
of the
do is-
contrary.
Except it's not impossible. You even granted
Yes,
the possibility
fallibilism
of other
is completely
certainties.
bunk.
So,
So-
Michael, don't get
Alex, this
too
is
much
not-
into philosophy, okay? Just,
So, just to be clear, Alex,
Okay.
you failed your
Yeah.
own standard here. You granted the possibility of
didn't.
other certainties. That
Yeah, but
means
I don't use
your
the word
definition of
certainty.
certainty.
I
here
used
is failed.
indefeasibility.
That is. Certainty is
No.
what you said in your opener.
Certainty
you
can be
need to have
described as a
certitude.
level of belief. That's not what I'm using here when
What's
I'm
the level of belief you're using for epistemic
exactly.
fallibilism on the alternative?
Oh, it's 100%.
Okay, can you tell me what a 99% belief is?
Yeah, something that you could be wrong about, but that you have.
Okay,
high
so like your
justification
definition of certainty?
for. Yeah, sure. Like
So
I said,
you can't
I
be
don't use the
certain of
word,
your definition of certainty, which is going to
certainty.
make it so you can't even know that epistemic fallibilism sucks because you're not certain of the alternative.
No, I know epistemic infallibilism is the truth because of my
Demonstrate
syllogism
it.
I gave in the opening statement.
Demonstrate that that's true.
We're not here to debate.
Can you certainly
Corinth.
demonstrate your syllogism is
Corinth,
true? You don't
if
know
you
what
want.
syllogism
Are
is,
you on the
first of all.
politics server?
I am, but
All
I'm
right,
asking you a
let's load
question
up.
right here and right now. Can you not dodge it?
Yeah, the same way that you dodged my question about the magic level of justification for fallibilism.
I gave you the justification for fallibilism. It's not a
No, you
quantitative
didn't.
thing. You misunderstand.
Okay, so
what it is.
I'm
It's a
asking for a
category.
quantitative thing.
I did. It's not a quantitative answer.
It is.
Okay, Alex, what's the number of times that red comes up in your eyes?
I'm asking for a quantitative thing. I'm not asking an incoherent question.
What's the number that
This
I
is-
like?
this is
wait,
literally
Corinth,
in the
Corinth, I have a
philosophical
question.
paper.
Corinth, I have an
About-
actual question. Like, so when you're like, if someone holds a position that there is possibility of certainty that, like, let's say a state of affairs that it is the case, and we don't have access to the fullness of the state of affairs, can they simultaneously not have full access to the full state of affairs and hold that there is a full exhaustive resolution of the state of affairs, even not having access to it? Like,
They can hold to it, but they can't know the thing, right? Since his claim is knowledge requires certainty. If you don't have that state of affairs, you don't have that level of certainty.
so like, let's say there's a type of geometric shape that we all can't conceive of fully, but we know mathematically it exists. Is the mathematical aspect that describes the geometric shape certainty, even in contrast to not being able to fully conceive of it visually?
From the given definition of certainty, potentially.
Okay, because I'm just
So
trying
we
to
can-
figure out what the bridge is like. It sounds like you're attacking Alex for not having 100% certainty of what certainty is. So therefore, he
Yes, I
doesn't
can-
have
I
access to
explained to you.
what.
Is this even related
I
to the
explained to you
debate
that I can
topic?
explain to
I
you.
think I'm
Yes, it is.
about
This is directly
out of
related to
time.
the debate topic.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
Here, hang on. No,
so
Corinth,
guys,
Corinth,
I
keep.
think I'm done. If anybody has any questions for me, you
Corinth,
can find me on my Linktree Jff4Truth. You can find me.
You're
So-
on TikTok, Jeff, like all the time, mostly, or
Yeah, I'm constantly. So my messages are open on TikTok.
okay.
So I don't even have to follow you. You can send me a message even
Well,
if you don't follow me on TikTok.
Before you go, Jeff, we got a couple more super chats I want to get to. Tapio says, Jeff, what constitutes historical veracity?
Well, the more you can corroborate a story, the more probable that will be true. And supernatural claims require even higher level of corroboration before you can believe it. So, you need the more evidence you have, the higher the probability that something happened, especially if it's something that comports with our known reality. But if it's something that does not comport with our known reality, then it would require extensive proof to overcome what we know to be true today, such as supernatural events. So to believe that supernatural things happened in the ancient past, but yet we can't see these things today, is an irrational, unjustified position.
All right, thank you. If you want to stick around, we'll just get through a couple more super chats. Corinth, I'm kicking you off because you suck and you're horrible and fuck you. All right, bye, Corinth. Thanks for coming on.
Corinth
but
got the most mellow dude, Alex, to like get a little bit irritated. You just went through a 2-hour debate and he was mellow as hell. Corinth is on for 12 seconds and Alex
sophistry.
Corinth does that to people. He's gotten me going to that degree a couple of times in the past. All right, let me get through these super chats and then we'll wrap it up here. Blue Skittle says, if God real, why mom take away my Game Boy in church? Sean says, was going to attend Jeff's comedy show, but I sent all my money to Jim Bob. Jehovah's
me, but
yeah. Jehovah's Thickness says, this $20 super chat says nothing. Tapio says, prophets of Bill got wrecked in this debate. Sean says, Michael, stop being a bundle. Not going to finish that one. Sean says,
oh, there it is again. I get that one though. That's funny.
Sean says, also, I'm learning Michelle is the comedian, but I couldn't tell. Every time VVV says, give him a break, his wife's boyfriend does not approve of all the intolerant jokes.
The cuck joke. Now you know when you're talking to a Trump supporter. They go straight for the cuck. They're cuck jokers.
The special chair, right, Michael? Extanglia says, why is Michael sitting like Stephen Hawking?
Two people making the same joke.
No, it's already said. Yeah.
Jack the Guitar God says, can Michael wipe the Vaseline off his camera so we can actually see his basement? Your camera was a little bit blurry tonight, Michael.
Just your iMac, your MacBook.
Oh, yeah, it's possible.
Extanglia says, why does Corinth sound 100% punchable? Certainly. Marcus Antonio, $2 says, passive aggressive rage quit. Well, he didn't rage quit. He's still here. Let's give him some slack. But that'll do it for the super chats. Thank you guys who sent those in, and thank you for all the callers who came in. And again, thank you guys for coming on. Jim Bob, it's your channel, so I'll let you sound it off here.
All right, cool. Thanks, Alex, for teaming up with me. Thank you, Jeff and Michael. I do really appreciate you coming on, especially Michael, given that you don't debate and you're coming up against rabid dogs, essentially, at this point. Zen, again, thank you. Huge shout out to Zen. W's in the chat for Zen for coming out. He has a new baby, but he still made it work. 3 hours.
Thank you,
plus.
Zen.
Appreciate you, Zen.
Congrats on that new baby.
Yeah, congrats.
Thank you.
And with that said, I think I'm not even going to stay on to keep going. It would be fun to hang out longer, but it is 6 o'clock. I wonder. Yeah, I'll do a review and hang out later. I think 3 hours is good enough. So with that said, I'm going to end the stream. Appreciate you all. Again, thank you to everyone who came out, and appreciate all the support. See you guys around, okay?
All right. Thank you.
Peace out.